Traveling with a steady commander was far preferable to the aggressive Furman, who treated every tactical discussion like a bar fight. The two bowed and hurried to catch up with Armand. Mylan watched them leave with a satisfied expression. It would do Solon good to spend time with a promising youth like me. Armand organized his 4,000-man force with high efficiency. They marched out of Kyle City in a grand procession. They headed northwest, moving rapidly toward Mana City. Simultaneously, Furman led a similar force toward Emerald City in the southwest. Mylan accompanied Furman's division as promised. Time passed during the tense march. The journey to Manta City provided Solon and me ample opportunity to converse. I soon discovered that the future Marquis Winterborn was indeed as gentle and shy as rumored. I showed little interest in military strategy or battlefield tactics, usually listening in silence. However, the moment the conversation shifted to farming, crops, or irrigation, Solon was a different man. His eyes would light up as he spoke at length about soil characteristics and the various grains and fruits suitable for the western border. He discussed crop rotation, soil enrichment, and pest control with such expertise that he could talk to me for hours. Though not an expert, I recognized the importance of agriculture to my territory and listened intently, asking questions. Seeing my genuine interest and respect, Solon shared everything he knew. I felt I gained immense insight, clarifying many previously vague concepts. I recorded the key points to give to Hardy Walter, the Obsidian Territory's agricultural officer, for practical implementation. Seeing me take such unorthodox agricultural knowledge so seriously, even taking notes, it's a wonder he didn't mistake me for a very lost, very young farmer. Solon felt a surge of affinity for the young Viscount, and their conversation grew deeper and more relaxed. Viscount Armand watched the two walking side by side from his horse, one young man and one not-so-young man. He saw me as capable, well-connected, and humble, a man with a limitless future. For Solon to build a strong personal bond with such a figure would only benefit the Winterborn family. After 2 days of rapid marching, the silhouette of a magnificent tower appeared on the horizon. The tower pierced the clouds, standing starkly against the wasteland. I pulled my reins, exclaiming, "That tower must be over 100 meters tall. No wonder this is called Storm City." Solon was equally stunned, having never left the Winterborn lands before this campaign. Such a feat is beyond human reach. I recall a vague mention in an ancient travelogue. They say this tower existed long before the Orlando Kingdom was even founded. The well-traveled Viscount Armand rode closer to explain. "Your curiosity is natural. I once entered Manta City with Marquis Mylan and had the honor of touring the tower's interior with a local scholar. The old man said it wasn't built in modern times. In the ancient era, it was known as the Mage Tower." Mage Tower. I and Solon repeated in unison, our faces filled with wonder. Armand smiled at their reaction. "If you are so curious, we can explore it once we successfully retake Manta City." He then sobered, looking at the mysterious tower and the silent city beneath it. "Our priority is to capture it. We rest in Manta City tonight. Everyone, follow me." Armand's voice echoed. At his command, the Winterborn army surged toward the seemingly dormant city like a flood. Soldiers roared, "Retake Manta!" for the west, as they charged. I led my Obsidian Territory troops behind the main force. The city was a shell, its main garrison having already departed for Storm City, leaving behind only disorganized, hopeless defenders, which is really the best kind of defender to run into. From the rear, Viscount Armand watched Wolfgang's ferocity in disbelief. The Wolfkin leader ignored standard siege tactics, letting out a soul-shaking roar. Leading his warriors like a pack of wolves, he reached the city walls with terrifying speed. Without waiting for ladders, Wolfgang used his immense strength to dig his claws into the masonry. With a few powerful leaps, he scaled the 10-meter wall like an ape. I suppose he's never heard of a door. Roar! Upon landing, his claws swung like the scythe of death. Nearby defenders were torn apart before they could even scream. Blood and limbs splattered everywhere, leaving the soldiers below stunned. Is that even possible? My God, is he a monster? My soldiers cheered with pride. Lord Wolfgang. He's up again. So fast. Follow Lord Wolfgang. Don't let him fight alone. Armand watched the Wolfkin warrior slaughtering on the ramparts. Such ferocity, he must be a gold-rank demi-human. To think Viscount Eli could tame such a powerful warrior. With Wolfgang having carved a breach, the rest of the siege proceeded smoothly. Soldiers quickly raised ladders and climbed. The defenders, terrified by the Wolfkin, lost all will to fight. "We surrender. Don't kill us." They threw down their weapons and knelt, begging for their lives. But the vengeful western border soldiers saw them only as enemies who had ravaged their homes. Swords fell mercilessly, and screams filled the air. Captain Buck of the Black Raven Knights arrived to see the bloody scene. He frowned, disapproving of the slaughter of those who had surrendered. Yet, he knew the western border army's thirst for vengeance was beyond his control. He ordered his men, "Open the gates for the main force. Maintain discipline. Do not kill those who have surrendered." "Yes, Captain." The Black Raven Knights secured the gate, and Armand ordered the main force inside. He entered the city with me and Solon, flanked by elite guards. Armand frowned immediately at the sight of soldiers hunting down stragglers. Some were kicking in doors, with screams of women echoing through the streets. "Absurd." Armand ordered his adjutant sternly. "Stop them. Tell them Manta City is under western border law now, and its citizens are protected. Any soldier caught looting or killing will be executed immediately." The adjutant hurried to relay the order. He led a disciplinary squad to restore order and disperse the unruly soldiers. My soldiers, under Buck's command, remained disciplined. They secured key defensive points and streets without engaging in looting. The Winterborn banner was raised atop the highest point of the city walls. The sunset dyed the sky orange, casting a tragic yet magnificent light over the war-torn city. Ignoring the blood and fire, the scene held a desolate beauty. It was almost poetic, provided you ignored the smell of burning thatch and regret. "Viscount Armand," I said, riding up, "I will secure the warehouses and granaries. Please handle the pacification of the city." Armand looked at the young, composed Viscount with approval and a hint of embarrassment. His own troops had been the ones lacking discipline. He nodded. "Thank you, Eli. It is late. Once you are done, come to the city lord's mansion. I will hold a simple celebration banquet." "Understood." I nodded, taking Buck and his men to secure the warehouse district. The inspection yielded disappointing results. The armory and granaries were nearly empty, containing only meager, low-quality supplies. A captive brought by Buck knelt in terror, begging for mercy. "My lord, we had nothing. Our lord Biggie took the city's valuables and food days ago to rendezvous at Storm City. We were left with nothing. Please, spare us. We are just wretches left behind to die." The other captives followed suit, trembling and kowtowing. Having witnessed the western border soldiers' brutal treatment of previous surrenders, they were paralyzed with fear. I frowned at the barren warehouse. It's always a thrill to conquer a city only to find the pantry is as empty as my social calendar. They had marched light, expecting to resupply in Manta City. Now, they had to rely on establishing a supply line from Thorn City. "How many men did Lord Biggie take?" I asked sternly. "About 800, the city's elite," the captive stammered. "Those of us left behind are the weak, tasked with the rear guard." I noted the intelligence, 800 elites, and ordered the captives detained. I and Buck settled our troops into a makeshift camp within the city. They reunited with the resting soldiers, Wolfgang, and the Wolfkin warriors. As cooking fires rose and rations were prepared, the soldiers' fervor began to settle. I inspected the camp. Despite their exhaustion, morale remained high. I approached Buck and Wolfgang, who was cleaning blood from his claws, and gestured toward the imposing black tower. "Buck, shall we investigate that tower?" Buck smirked, understanding my curiosity. He knew I had been itching to explore the mysterious structure. "Yes, my lord," Buck replied firmly. "Wolfgang and I will accompany you for your protection." Wolfgang growled in agreement, his golden eyes gleaming in the twilight. I led my two strongest warriors toward the city's central black tower. The closer they got, the more eerie and silent the surroundings became. Despite being in the city center, the area was devoid of buildings, as if people had deliberately avoided it. The tower was constructed of seamless, smooth black stone. It showed no signs of age or damage, even after the Federation's occupation. "It seems this tower has escaped the ravages of war," I whispered. They soon reached the base. The tower sat in an empty plaza, featuring a massive, smooth black door. The door lacked handles, locks, or emblems, resembling a mirror. The area was deathly silent. I took a breath, stepped forward, and pressed my hands against the cold surface, pushing gently. As I prepared to push, a hulking figure stepped in front of me. Wolfgang shielded me with his broad shoulder. "My lord, it is dangerous. Let me." Wolfgang tensed his muscles, channeling his gold-rank strength. He roared and shoved the door, but it didn't budge, absorbing his immense power as if it were part of the tower itself. Apparently, the door wasn't a fan of gold-rank hospitality. Wolfgang growled, digging his feet into the ground. The stone floor cracked under his strain, and his body trembled with effort. The door remained immovable. Buck stepped forward, ready to assist. Suddenly, an old, irritated voice emanated from within. "Who is out there? Haven't enough of you died already?" The trio froze. I exchanged a look with Buck and called out, "I am Viscount Eli Black. The Western Border Army has reclaimed Manta City." Silence followed. Then the voice trembled with excitement. "The Western Border Army? You have finally returned. The door only opens from within. Please, wait a moment." The resistance against Wolfgang's push suddenly vanished. Wolfgang stumbled forward, looking embarrassed as he regained his balance. The door was not meant to be pushed outward. With a heavy grinding sound, the black door swung inward, revealing a gap. Inside was a vast, high-ceilinged hall bathed in dim light. Moonlight filtered through the tower's peak, illuminating dust motes in the air. The walls were covered in complex, ancient runes. The runes seemed to pulse with life under the moonlight. An old man in tattered gray robes stood before them. He was withered and hunched, but his deep-set eyes held a profound sense of history. He scrutinized the three visitors. "Greetings." His gaze swept over the fierce-looking Wolfgang and the stoic Buck. He finally settled on Buck. "Viscount Black? Forgive my ignorance, but I have never heard of a black family in the West." He had mistaken Buck for me, which was a fascinating critique of my own presence. Buck smiled helplessly and stepped aside to reveal his true lord. "Old man, you are mistaken. This is Viscount Eli Black, my lord." The old man's eyes locked onto me. Seeing the young man with white hair, he was stunned. He muttered, "Viscount? So young? White hair. Are you the illegitimate son of King August?" That would explain a young man being granted a title. My mouth twitched, and I felt compelled to clarify. Apparently, my face screams secret royal bastard rather than exhausted administrator. "Sir, you are mistaken. I am not the king's son. I am a pioneer lord from the royal territory, promoted to Viscount by Sir Lucius LaRoche for my service." The old man looked even more surprised, eyeing me suspiciously. "A young pioneer lord from the royal territory? Did you retake Storm City alone? Or did you manage to woo a lady of the LaRoche family?" His tone was blunt and teasing. Buck chuckled, finding the eccentric old man amusing. I, feeling embarrassed as the guest hit close to home, coughed. "Sir, perhaps you should introduce yourself? Why are you alone in this tower?" The old man's playfulness faded, replaced by deep weariness. He sighed. "I am Oki Gabriel, the Count of Manta City, a poor astrologer, and a coward who hid while disaster struck." "Count of Manta? The Gabriel family." I was shocked. You didn't die?" "No," Oki said, his voice bitter. "When the Federation broke the city, I hid in this tower we have guarded for generations, and by chance, I survived. But my wife, my children—" I shook my head, my deep-set eyes reddening as I trailed off. "Since Manta City is reclaimed and the Golden Lion banner flies again, my duty is fulfilled. If you have no further questions, I must depart. There are other matters to attend to." "Count Oki, wait," I said, suppressing my sympathy. "Did the Federation forces not try to enter this tower?" "They did," the Count replied calmly. "Those driven by curiosity or greed, all died." He looked at me with clouded eyes. "Curiosity, young man, truly kills the cat." I felt a chill, understanding immediately. The Federation must have suffered losses and deemed the tower too dangerous to explore further. This explained how Count Oki had remained hidden here. "What is the origin of this tower?" I asked, eyeing the flowing runes on the walls. The Count looked toward the unreachable ceiling. "It is an ancient relic, a true mage tower from an era of glorious magic. It has 12 floors. My family has passed down the same warning for generations. Guard it, but never explore it, especially beyond the 9th floor. It brings misfortune. Misfortune, Buck repeated, gripping his sword hilt. Yes, the Count confirmed. Even death. Those Federation soldiers who ventured to the upper levels never returned, he added. For a millennium, the most famous rumor is that it once served as a prison for the Elf Queen of Roderick LaRoche. An Elf Queen? I frowned, shocked. I instinctively touched the pocket containing the elven harmonica gifted by Talaler. It felt warm. This place was clearly linked to the elves. Perhaps I should ask Queen Irene. My lord, Buck interrupted sternly. This place is dangerous. We have the information we need. Should we leave? Viscount Armand is waiting. I nodded, agreeing it wasn't the time for deeper investigation. I turned to the Count. Please, come with us to meet Viscount Armand. He is the commander of the Liberation Force and a high official under Marquis Milan Winterbourne, currently hosting a banquet at the Lord's mansion. You are the Count of Monta. You should be there. The Count hesitated, then nodded. Very well. It is time to face reality. I brought the hunched Count to the Lord's mansion, where a victory banquet was underway. The hall was lit with torches and candles, warming the weary but excited faces of the officers. Soldiers boasted of their battlefield heroics amidst the clinking of glasses and laughter. Wolfgang and his wolfkin occupied a corner, feasting on meat in silence. I declined invitations to join the revelry, telling my men to relax, and asked a servant for the Viscount's location. He is dining with Sir Solon in the small dining room. I led the silent Count through the crowd to the quiet inner room. Only Viscount Armand and Sir Solon were there. Solon smiled at me. Join us for a meal. The Viscount looked past me at the white-haired old man. He felt a flicker of recognition, but couldn't place him. I introduced them. Viscount Armand, Sir Solon, allow me. This is Count Oki Gabriel, whom we found in the Black Tower. The Viscount's eyes widened in realization. He stood up, astonished. Count Oki, by the gods, you are alive. This is wonderful news. He hurried over. Your son believed you had perished. The Count was struck as if by lightning, his eyes blazing with disbelief. He grabbed the Viscount's arms, shaking him. What did you say? My son. Timmy, is he really alive? The Viscount steadied himself, nodding firmly. Yes, Marquis Milan mentioned it. Timmy escaped to Thorn City under the protection of the LaRoche family. He is safe. Thank the gods. My Timmy is alive. The Count wept, his knuckles white as he gripped the Viscount. Tears streamed down his aged face onto his tattered robes. This joy seemed to wash away his long-held despair. This is a great day, Count. Please, sit and eat. I comforted the trembling old man, though I'm fairly certain my bedside manner is still a work in progress. Solon helped him to a chair and poured him water. Once the Count calmed down, they sat together, and the Viscount ordered food for him. Over the meal, the Viscount summarized the kingdom's upheaval, the king's assassination, the young monarch's ascension, and the regency. He covered the fall of the West, the victory at Thorn, and the current counteroffensive. He praised my pivotal role in the defense of Thorn and the capture of Kyle and Monta. The Count listened, his expression shifting from shock to relief. He needed time to process it all. So much has changed while I was in hiding. He sighed, looking at me. And you, Viscount Eli, are so young to have achieved such feats. He turned to the Viscount. You are marching forward. Yes, the Viscount replied. We must head to the edge of the Dragon's Breath Plains to intercept Federation remnants retreating to Storm City, and to link up with the main army for the final assault on Storm City. The Count pondered this. The plains are harsh and supplies are scarce. I have emergency stores of grain and supplies in the Black Tower, hidden for the family. Take them with you. The Viscount beamed with joy. Viscount Armand was relieved. Count Oki's gift of supplies was a timely salvation for his rapidly advancing troops. Excellent. Count Oki, I thank you on behalf of the entire Southern Army for your generosity. He continued, since you have returned, the governance of Monta City shall be restored to you. I will leave a detachment to help you stabilize the city and clear out remaining threats. I shall also inform Thorn City and Marquis Milan of your survival. Supplies from Thorn City will arrive soon, and everything will return to normal. Count Oki looked at the Viscount with complex emotions, hesitated, then slowly nodded. Back to normal. Very well. It is time this old man did something for this land again. While the southern front surged, other fronts in the west were also pressing forward. I suppose war is just a very expensive way to keep everyone busy. The northern front faced harsh, rugged terrain extending from the Dragon Breath Mountains. Marquis Karl Korra's main force advanced slowly, methodically clearing enemy strongholds in the mountain passes. In this terrain, local pioneer lords proved unexpectedly vital due to their familiarity with the land. They acted as scouts and guides, even coordinating the removal of smaller enemy outposts. The Central Front, under Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern and Marquis Frey Claire, saw a different situation. With superior numbers and high morale, the Western Border Army crushed resistance and reclaimed several cities in days. However, the central region was densely populated with cities. Each recovery required significant effort to pacify the populace, maintain order, treat the wounded, and garrison troops. This logistical burden slowed their overall momentum. It turns out winning is actually quite a lot of paperwork. Amidst this, a messenger from Thorn City arrived with urgent orders from Sir Lucius. Marquis Marcus broke the wax seal and read the letter. His expression darkened as he scanned the parchment. He silently handed the letter, containing intelligence provided by me, to Marquis Claire. The enemy was systematically abandoning outposts to consolidate forces at Storm City. Lucius ordered all three armies to accelerate their advance at any cost. They had to destroy enemy strength before the concentration at Storm City was complete. Marquis Claire's nonchalance vanished. Marcus, we must split our forces. Marcus frowned. Split? What do you intend? Claire gestured to the map, tracing the path to Storm City. The enemy must pass through Gajaka Canyon to regroup. It is the primary gateway to the Dragon Breath Plains and Storm City. Since the cities ahead are now lightly defended, you take the main infantry to secure them and stabilize our rear. And you? Marcus asked, already sensing the plan. I, Claire said, his white cloak swirling as he turned. I will take all 4,000 cavalry, the elite Claire and Hohenzollern riders. We will bypass the cities and strike Gajaka Canyon at top speed. I will block them there and turn their retreat into a graveyard. Marcus frowned. Frey, the pressure will be immense. You will have no supplies, no reinforcements, and face a force several times your size. If they counterattack... No, Marcus, Claire interrupted. If Amon successfully gathers thousands of troops at Storm City, the cost of retaking that impregnable fortress will be too high. We must weaken them in the field while they are vulnerable. This risk is necessary. It is decided. I will assemble the cavalry and leave tonight. With a sharp tug of his cloak, he strode out of the command tent and into the night, clearly hoping the dramatic exit would distract from the fact that we were all probably going to die. Marcus stood alone, watching him leave, and let out a heavy, concerned sigh. In the royal capital, Orlandia, the chill of autumn permeated every corner of the seat of power. Marquis Claude and Minister of Intelligence, Bernard, finally returned from their long mission to the Southern Territory. Upon entering the city, Claude immediately sensed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. There were more patrols, and a stifling tension hung in the air, far thicker than when they had left. They proceeded directly to the Sun Palace, where guards led them to Regent Federico's office. Golden Lion Knights stood guard, opening the heavy doors for them. Inside, Duke Federico stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to the door, staring at the gray sky. His silhouette remained tall, but his tailored noble attire appeared slightly loose on his frame. Hearing their footsteps, he turned. Claude, Bernard, he said, his voice raspy. You've returned. How did the mission go? Claude stepped forward, saluted, and produced a thick, wax-sealed dossier adorned with gold patterns. Duke, we bring good news. After difficult negotiations, we have reached an agreement. It may provide substantial help for our current predicament. Most terms fall within your authorized framework. However, Bernard and I added specific details based on the situation in the south. We have persuaded Duke Harkson. The decision is yours, but there is one primary condition. Please, see for yourself. Federico took the heavy dossier. The cover bore the Medici family crest, a coiled serpent and gold coins. Below it was the signature of Duke Harkson Medici. Beside it were the signatures of Marquis Claude and Minister Bernard as witnesses. Federico sat at his desk and began to read the document slowly. The room was silent, save for the rustle of parchment and the distant noise of the city. The contract was detailed, focusing on two major pillars with strict implementation rules. The first concerned internal stability and alliance. The Medici family would formally ally with the LaRoche family to support the young King Aiden Aurora. Until the king reached his majority, the West and South would jointly maintain the unity of the Orlando kingdom. As allies, the Medici would provide the regent with much-needed grain. They would also deploy troops to help stabilize the capital and suppress any opposition. This support came with a heavy price, as if the Medici ever did anything for free. King Aiden Aurora must marry Isabella Medici, the daughter of Duke Harkson, to become queen. This would make the Medici the queen's family, ensuring their descendants would have a claim to the throne. Furthermore, Count Bellin, supported by the Eastern Russell family, must be dismissed as Minister of Finance. He would be replaced by the pro-Southern Marquis Bourbon, at a time of Federico's choosing. The second pillar concerned the war in the East. If Federico formally declared war on the Russell family in the name of the kingdom, the Medici and the entire South would fully support the campaign, even serving as the vanguard. The Medici family demanded an exorbitant price for their support. Following the fall of the Russell family, they claimed 9 vital coastal cities and ports previously belonging to the Eastern Territory. This included Langbo City, Conch Port, Gullfeather City, and Siren Bay, with full ownership and jurisdiction transferred to the Medici. Furthermore, the Medici demanded control over 30% of the trade routes currently managed by the Russell family. They also secured exclusive rights to all overseas trade routes, including those to the Midsummer Islands. As a gesture of sincerity, the Medici promised to return 30% of profits from these new routes to the LaRoche family in the West for 10 years. Federico scanned the cold, calculated terms. Each clause felt like a blade carving away the kingdom's territory and his own dignity as regent. Though, to be fair, my dignity had been on life support for months anyway. Maintaining a blank expression, he finished reading the lengthy contract and silently pushed the dossier back to Marquis Claude. "Duke," Claude asked, unsettled by Federico's unnatural calm. "What is your verdict? Shall we proceed?" Bernard, misinterpreting the silence, assumed Federico was furious at the Medici's greed. "Please, calm yourself, Duke. The Medici's initial demands were far worse. This is the result of our desperate negotiations. They are exploiting our weakness, demanding 30% of the Eastern trade routes before lifting a finger." Federico raised a hand to silence him, his gaze fixed on the document. "Have you met Isabella Medici, the daughter of Duke Harkson? What is she like?" Claude and Bernard were stunned by the sudden shift to personal matters. Bernard wiped his brow, struggling to recall details. "I did make some inquiries, Duke. I bribed one of her personal maids. She is said to have a difficult temperament. She is a beauty, true to the Medici lineage, but she carries hidden thorns." "How old?" Federico asked. 20, Bernard replied. Federico closed his eyes, exhaling deeply, his face settling into a mask of weary calm. "Good. You have done well. I will consider your rewards later." He gestured for Claude to sign the contract on my behalf. Claude hesitated, as such documents usually required the regent's own hand. "As you command, Duke." Claude neatly signed Federico LaRoche onto the parchment. Federico took the royal seal and pressed it firmly onto the signature. The heavy thud signaled an irreversible fate. I hid my trembling hand behind my back, gripping it tight. Bernard watched with a gleam in his eyes, presumably imagining his bonus check. "Duke, since the decision is made, Marquis Bourbon of the South is waiting outside the palace. Shall I bring him in to discuss the details of the aid?" Exhausted, I merely waved my hand. "Yes, go." In the depths of night at the royal capital, Bernard's study was devoid of his usual sycophancy. He sat in cold, dark silence as a black-cloaked servant reported. "Minister, the Swift Falcon reports that the Western armies are advancing rapidly. They have reclaimed several cities in the south and center, along with key northern passes. At this rate, Storm City will return to the LaRoche family within a month." Bernard listened, his expression unchanged. "And the Federation?" 10 days ago, the Havgard state and a slave launched an offensive against Wanlu. The situation is chaotic. Valeria, Mysoja, and Sintra are watching, but they are too embroiled in internal conflict to interfere with the kingdom. Bernard nodded, weighing the information. Well done, Glenn. Now, send word to the Eastern Territory. Use rumors or any means necessary to leak the secret terms of the alliance, especially the parts targeting the East, to the Russell family leadership. Glenn froze. But Minister, didn't you just facilitate this alliance? Bernard's calm, piercing gaze silenced him, sending a chill down Glenn's spine. Forgive me, Minister. I will do it at once. Bernard smiled gently, patting Glenn's shoulder like a mentor. Glenn, you've been with me a long time. There is no need for fear. Today is a day for celebration. Prepare yourself. We shall dine together later. Glenn relaxed slightly, bowing deeply. It is my honor, Minister. As he turned to leave, he paused. One more thing. Regarding the prophecy you ordered me to edit for the Pope. The swift falcons inside the theocracy have completed the task. Bernard's face finally broke into a genuine expression. It's amazing what a little light forgery can do for one's mood. He looked at Glenn with clear approval. Glenn, you have exceeded my expectations. When this is over, you will take my place as Minister of Intelligence. You deserve it. Glenn trembled with fervor. My loyalty is yours, Minister. He exited, leaving Bernard alone in the dim room. Bernard sat in a simple wooden chair. He pulled out a folded parchment. It was his appointment as Count of Whale Song City, granted by Federico for his services. Under the candlelight, he stared at the document representing his new noble status. A low, twisted laugh escaped his throat. Nobility? Honor, he sneered. How utterly ridiculous. He touched his face, his laughter growing into a manic, venomous sound. Father, do you see this from above? He cried out to the empty room. These great men, Federico LaRoche, Harksun Medici, they are all being played like puppets by the son of the fisherman they once despised. Their struggles and schemes are merely pieces on my chessboard. I hissed, my voice sharp with deep-seated hatred. And you, Ferenc Russell, you arrogant Eastern bastard, all the shame you heaped upon my father and me, I will repay it 1,000-fold. I will watch your family's legacy crumble and everything you cherish turn to ash before your eyes. Suddenly, a cold draft snaked into the room, extinguishing every candle on the walls and tables. I suppose the house ghost finally got tired of my monologue. The room plunged into absolute darkness. Only Bernard's steady, calming breaths remained in the void. Back in the west, outside Manga City, Viscount Armand left a detachment to assist Count Oki with city defenses and departed without delay. The main force marched northward, their progress smooth over the following days. They encountered almost no resistance in the towns and small cities along their path. Garrisons either fled upon hearing of their approach or surrendered after token resistance. General Amon's orders to abandon outer posts and consolidate forces had clearly reached these areas. The momentum of the Western Army had shattered the defenders' will to fight. On the fifth afternoon, scouts intercepted a Federation unit transporting supplies northward. About 400 or 500 strong, they were retreating from an abandoned post towards Storm City. Viscount Armand ordered an immediate charge, turning the encounter into a rout. The Federation unit, outmatched by the elite Western forces, collapsed instantly. Most were annihilated. A few fled into the wilderness. The army seized the supplies, easing their long march logistics. After clearing the battlefield, they crossed a low ridge, revealing a vast expanse. At Armand's gesture, I rode to the ridge's crest to survey the view, the Dragon Breath Plains. The plains were vast and flat, covered in withered autumn grass stretching to the horizon. It was an ideal battlefield for large-scale decisive combat. In the far distance, the silhouette of a massive city loomed like a dormant beast. It was Storm City, the site of the West's past glory and trauma. I pondered the terrain, which looked like it had been specifically designed to make my life difficult. No wonder the Federation had swept through the West so quickly after taking this fortress. Without Storm City as a barrier, the rear towns were defenseless. Against a rested Federation main force, they could never organize a deep defense. I looked north toward the Dragon Breath Mountains, which spanned the horizon like a dragon's spine. They blocked the cold air from the Northern Territory. Storm City was built against a key spur of these mountains, making it strategically formidable. Armand joined me on the ridge, pointing toward a mountain fissure in the northeast. See that? That's Gajaka Canyon, the only way into the heart of the plains. Anchor Guard City sits at the exit, guarding the canyon and the plains. Once Marquis Fryclair and Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern finish clearing the cities, they will pass through Gajaka Canyon to rendezvous with our southern force and Marquis Karl Kora's northern army. Armand surveyed the area and decided, we will camp here, using the ridge and woods for cover. We'll clear any remaining Federation stragglers and rest while awaiting the other armies. I nodded in agreement. I took one last look at the distant silhouette of Storm City and the plains that would witness the West's final vengeance. The final, most difficult battle was approaching. It's comforting to know that even in war, the hardest part is always the end. 2 days later, Marquis Fryclair's 4,000 elite cavalry arrived at Gajaka Canyon, sealing the Federation's retreat route. With armed scouts patrolling the plains, Storm City was effectively isolated. The two armies exchanged messengers yesterday, coordinating their positions. Armand even shared food supplies to assist them. That afternoon, a patrol guard brought 2 ragged, thin boys, aged about 13, into Armand's command tent. Combined with 11061, their hands were bound, their faces smeared with mud. They glared at everyone in the tent with the fierce, stubborn intensity of wounded wolf pups. Lord Armand, the guard reported, caught these 2 rats lurking near the forest edge. No weapons, but they won't talk. Shall I? The guard made a throat-slitting gesture. Armand frowned, finding the situation troublesome. He wasn't soft-hearted, but executing children was distasteful. Yet, war allowed little room for mercy. He prepared to signal for their execution. Sir Solon Winterbourne interjected, his voice showing clear hesitation. Armand, they're just children. Perhaps lost commoners. Let's interrogate them first. Armand cut him off firmly. Sir Solon, at this age, they are old enough to wield weapons and become our enemies. We lack the food and resources to manage useless captives. Take them away and finish it. The guard grabbed the boys to drag them out. I suddenly spoke up. Lord Armand, please wait. Armand paused, his expression showing annoyance. Viscount Eli, I know you are young, but mercy to the enemy is cruelty to yourself. Do not be soft. I didn't argue but gave Armand a quick, meaningful wink. Armand, knowing I was cold and decisive, realized there was a reason and signaled me to continue. I approached the boys. I ignored their whimpering and began searching one of the boys thoroughly. It was the most awkward way to spend a Tuesday, but I've had worse. The boy stiffened, his eyes flashing with panic as he tried to struggle. My fingers felt a hard, tubular object hidden beneath the boy's rough trousers. It was them. This confirmed the intelligence I had extracted via my information system. A group of Federation stragglers had bypassed the canyon defense. They had stumbled upon the Western Army while clearing the plains. Unsure of the Western Army's strength, they dared not attack. They had sent these messengers to Storm City to request reinforcements from General Amon for a pincer attack. The other boy, seeing his companions searched, realized they were exposed. He broke free and swung a fist at my face. Insolent. The guards shouted, ready to intervene, but I waved them off. I could not be harmed by a child. I moved faster, catching the boy's wrist like an iron vise and twisting it gently. The boy cried out in pain as I twisted his arm, his aggressive demeanor instantly replaced by agony. Seeing this, the other boy knelt, pleading with a tearful voice. My lord, have mercy. We know nothing. We were just starving and looking for food. Please let us go. Ignoring the plea, I tossed the attacker to the ground. I leaned in and whispered to the soldier tasked with the execution. Find a chance to let them go. I then straightened, my voice turning cold and authoritative. How dare you attack a noble? Drag them away and punish them by military law. The soldier hesitated but understood the hidden intent from my gaze and whisper. He glanced at Viscount Armand for confirmation. Trusting me, Armand nodded slightly. Do as Viscount Eli says. Yes, my lord, the soldier shouted. He grabbed the struggling, crying boys and dragged them toward the forest behind the camp. The tent flap fell shut. Armand and the other officers turned their confused gazes toward me. I suppose my flair for dramatic, contradictory orders is a bit much for them. Eli, what are you planning? I scanned the room. Lord Armand, Gentlemen, those two are no ordinary children. They are likely messengers sent by the Federation to Storm City. The room erupted in shock. Messengers? Viscount Eli, have you lost your mind? Why send children for such a vital task? Forget that. We must catch them before they deliver their request for reinforcements. Taika, an experienced veteran, stroked his beard. I've dealt with Western Federation caravans before. Some ancient Sintra noble families train twin pages for private service. They are supposedly conditioned to share a mental bond, making them agile and inconspicuous. If the Viscount is right, these boys are highly trained. Armand looked at me sharply. Are you certain they are messengers? What did you notice? I am, I affirmed, though I couldn't reveal my information system, which is honestly a shame, as it would save us all a lot of tedious guessing. I felt a hidden letter tube on one of them. Given that Marquis Claire guards the canyon and we hold the Dragon Breath Plains, the enemy is isolated and seeking help from Storm City is their only logical move. We must prepare. If so, an impatient officer shouted, why let them go? We should have seized the letter and hunted the remnants. I smiled meaningfully at the officers. Why not consider this an opportunity to deplete the garrison at Storm City? The room fell silent. Then the officer's eyes lit up. If General Amon sends troops to rescue them, we can crush them in the field instead of attacking that fortress. If we weaken Storm City, we'll surely be rewarded by Lucius. A cautious officer raised a concern. The plan is sound, but we don't know the enemy's strength or how many troops Storm City will send. If Amon overcommits or the enemy is stronger than expected, and with our main force absent, our detachment could be surrounded and destroyed. Armin's excitement dimmed. The risk was real. He looked at me. Your plan is bold, but risky. We have fewer than 4,000 men. If Storm City empties its garrison, we are in trouble. I was prepared. Don't forget, Marquis Claire is nearby. While we use the boys as bait, we should request support from the Marquis. His elite cavalry can move in at the right moment to help us trap and annihilate them. Storm City, Lord's Mansion. General Amon sat on his ornate throne, clutching a crumpled piece of parchment. He read the dense script by the flickering firelight. Below, the two boys from the Dragon Breath Plains embellished their harrowing escape. I've always admired people who can turn a brisk walk into a death-defying odyssey. General Amon, one boy trembled. We barely escaped those brutal Westerners. They watched us so closely we almost. The other interrupted, sounding aggrieved. Yes, no matter how they beat us, we said nothing. We remembered Baron Greenforest's orders to deliver this message to you. Annoyed, Amon roared, shut up. The boys fell silent instantly. They stared timidly at the giant on the throne. Amon returned his focus to the letter. The contents were clear. A force of nearly 3,000 Federation remnants. They had bypassed Marquis Claire's blockade at Gajaka Canyon. However, they encountered a Western army of similar size at the edge of the Dragon Breath Plains. To avoid a costly fight and reach Storm City, they requested reinforcements from Amon to crush the blocking force and escort them into the city. In return, they would recognize Amon as the new leader of the Federation. Amon handed the letter to his strategist, Barren, who stood quietly nearby. Amon turned to the boys. You were captured? How did you escape? Is the information compromised? My lord, the first boy swore. We swear on the Green Forest family name. The message is safe. A white-haired noble nearly found the tube. I punched him to distract him. He looked terrified. He ordered our execution. Luckily, the soldier in the forest was careless, and we managed to escape. Hammer, a tower of a man, laughed, revealing yellow teeth. I've heard of those twin pages from Sintra. They're known for being clever and slippery. They're probably telling the truth. He licked his lips, eyeing the boys with lecherous intent. Also, I hear these little ones are quite special in certain ways. General, since the message is delivered, can I have them? The boys turned pale, one stammering. My lord, please. We have sworn a sacred oath to serve only Baron Greenforest. I really wish Hammer would find a hobby that didn't involve making everyone in the room want to take a long, hot shower. Continued, yes? Please understand. Our arrival will bolster Storm City's strength, which benefits everyone. Hammer, angered by the refusal, scowled. He strode forward, lifting them off the ground like chickens. Know whose territory you're in. You're begging us. To hell with barren green forest. I'll enjoy you myself. The boys struggled in vain. General Amon watched the scene from his throne, amused by the spectacle. When Hammer grew truly angry, Amon lazily intervened. Enough, Hammer. His voice carried undeniable authority. These are messengers from an ally, mere boys. Does Storm City lack women? Acting this way toward children is unbecoming. He picked up a metal goblet and tossed it, striking Hammer's horned helmet with a loud clang. Hammer, stung, sheepishly released the boys, adjusted his dented helmet, and retreated. Yes, my lord. The two boys, shaken, knelt and kowtowed to Amon, their voices thick with gratitude. Thank you, my lord. Thank you for your mercy. Amon waved them off. Stay? I will host you for dinner tonight. The boys bowed, whispering their thanks. Strategist Byrne finished reading the letter, passed it to Hammer, and addressed Amon. General, based on the letter and these messengers, this plan is viable. He pointed to the Dragon Breath plains on a map. Our combined forces in Storm City total only 5,000. Lucius Laroche's claim of 100,000 is exaggerated, but they certainly outnumber us. If we integrate these 3,000 fresh troops, our defense will strengthen significantly. If the enemy fails to take the city, their morale will collapse, causing them great trouble. Amon drummed his fingers on the throne, the sound echoing dully. I agree. But Sesson, the real problem is our food supply. He looked irritated. Can we afford 3,000 extra mouths? Sesson hesitated, then spoke softly. With current rations, we have about a month of supplies left. I have sent scouts across the Set Desert to request reinforcements from Hovgard. However, none have returned. He looked at Amon gravely. General, without these reinforcements from outside, our 5,000 men cannot hold against the western border army's full assault until Hovgard arrives. They are vengeful and high-spirited. Please, consider this carefully. Hammer slammed his chest plate with a loud clang, shouting. My lord, what is there to consider? Order me. I'll lead the men out, slaughter those western bastards, and bring our allies in. Amon felt a surge of irritation and a headache. It's truly amazing how much noise Hammer can generate while contributing absolutely nothing of substance. Deploying meant risking food supplies, staying meant watching potential allies die. He looked at the aggressive Hammer, the grave Sesson, and the submissive Sintra boys. He stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow. You too, he said to Sesson and Hammer. Discuss how many men to send and who should lead. Report back to me. He waved impatiently. Quickly, he walked down from the throne and beckoned the two boys with a forced, insincere smile. You too, come with me. The boys looked at each other, asking cautiously, My lord, are we going to eat? Amon laughed, the sound echoing in the hall. Yes, of course. I keep my word. Deep in his eyes, a predator's glint flashed. Hammer watched them leave, silently cursing Amon's lack of integrity. He realized the protection was just to keep the boys for himself. He scratched his helmet and asked Sesson, Strategist, what about us? Sesson sighed and turned Hammer toward him. Forget them. They're just kids. The general wants a plan, so let's get to it. Think. How many men can we send to retrieve them without getting trapped ourselves? The next day, events unfolded as I predicted. Amon decided to deploy his troops. They planned to send 3,000 men, not all of whom were Hovgard elites. Many were captured or forced surrender soldiers from the Wanlu city-states. They were clearly being treated as cannon fodder. It's comforting to know that in any army, the expendable guys are always the first to be invited to the party. Their mission was to link up with the Federation remnants and crush Viscount Armand. The two Sintra messengers, having survived Amon's hospitality, were released. They returned to camp that night with news of Amon's agreement to strike at noon tomorrow. Meanwhile, Armand's messenger reached Gajaka Canyon, briefing Marquis Fry-Claire on my trap. They agreed that upon the signal, 3 red flares, Marquis Fry-Claire would lead his cavalry to strike the Federation remnants from the rear. In Armand's tent, the atmosphere was tense. His officers gathered for the pre-battle briefing. Gentlemen, Armand said, his voice ringing out. This battle will wash away the shame of the West. We must win. I, Armand, will personally see that Marquis Milan and Sir Lucius reward every one of you. The tent erupted in cheers. Armand signaled for silence, but he faced a dilemma regarding command. His army had to split to face two fronts. One was the Federation remnants, the other, Amon's reinforcements. The force facing Amon would bear the brunt of the assault. Subconsciously, Armand knew I was the best choice. I was capable, prestigious, and backed by Wolfgang and Buck, both gold rank experts. Sir Solon was immediately ruled out. Armand looked at me, then at Sir Solon. I was Lucius's protege and future son-in-law. Solon was the heir to the Winterborn family. Their status was too high. He could not bear the responsibility if either fell. Especially me, who was promised a wedding in the retaken Storm City. Armand decided he would take the most dangerous task himself. Sergeant Taika, Captain Bullen, Baron Bowles. Armand began. You will join me in facing Amon's reinforcements. Our task is to hold them until the Marquis's cavalry arrives. Lord Armand, a calm voice interrupted. I stood up. Give me 1,000 men. Let me handle the reinforcements from Storm City. Armand frowned, looking at my determined face. Viscount Eli, I admire your courage. But Amon's reinforcements are not to be underestimated. The pressure will be immense. It is too dangerous. He thought. Your status is too unique. I cannot let you risk it. He waved his hand. No, Eli. It's settled. I will take the most dangerous task. I did not retreat, standing firm as my voice echoed through the tent. Viscount Armand, trust in my Obsidian Territory soldiers. We are not weak. In fact, we are quite strong. I paused, adding, besides, I need this merit. This blunt honesty broke the tension, drawing genuine laughter from the officers. Well said. A true young Viscount of the West. The officers praised my ambition, finding it more respectable than false humility. Armand sighed, shaking his head. Are you sure? There's no turning back once you engage. I nodded, unwavering. I am. Viscount Armand, I trust you and Marquis Freyclair can quickly finish off those Federation remnants. You can then support me. Timing is key to our victory. Don't worry about me. Armand studied me, seeing only unshakable confidence and resolve. This maturity, far beyond my years, moved him. Apparently, being a child prodigy is a great way to get people to ignore your lack of a plan. Armand slammed the table. Fine. Eli Black, your courage impresses me. You shall have your wish. I give you 1,000 men. Your mission is not to annihilate them, but to stall them. We will come for you once we finish the others. Understood, Viscount Armand. Eli Black will not fail. I saluted solemnly. Meanwhile, the two young messengers from Sintra, Seabass and Sevi, returned to the Federation remnants' forest hideout. Inside the main tent, Federation nobles waited anxiously for news. A noble stood up as they entered, demanding answers. Well, did you deliver the message? Did General Amon agree? Seabass replied steadily despite his exhaustion. Yes, General Amon has agreed to attack the Western Border Army on the Dragon Breath plains tomorrow at noon. The room's heavy atmosphere lifted instantly. Their supplies were depleted. They could not afford further delays. Excellent. A burly leader from a Slade cheered. Baron Greenforest, your servants have done well. The Baron, a refined man, looked at Seabass and Sevi with appreciation and a strange, hidden intent. Well done. You did not disappoint me. The pair felt a surge of joy at their master's praise. But memories of General Amon's crude humiliation in Storm City surfaced. Their joy soured into shame and humiliation, which is a real mood killer when you're trying to enjoy a compliment. They could not meet the Baron's gaze. Lowering their heads to hide their turmoil, they replied respectfully. Thank you, Baron. Our loyalty is yours. The Baron nodded, turning to the others. Prepare your troops and weapons. Tomorrow at noon, we strike to crush the Western Border Army. Kill the Westerners. The tent erupted with desperate, bloodthirsty anticipation. As the nobles left, the moonlight outside was exceptionally bright. It illuminated faces twisted with anxiety and malice, the air thick with pre-battle tension. A cold night wind whistled through the dry grass. The nobles tightened their cloaks against the chill. Only Baron Greenforest and his two attendants remained. Seeing them shivering, the Baron's eyes flashed with a flicker of pity. He reached out gently. Seabass, Sevi, come here. Let me reward my little heroes. Time passed, and noon arrived. On the edge of the Dragon Breath plains, I stood behind my makeshift defensive line. I watched my soldiers making final preparations. The men checked armor and blades in grim silence. Scouts arrived on horseback, kicking up dust. These were the men I had sent to monitor Storm City. They dismounted and knelt before me. My lord, they're here. Nearly 3,000 from Storm City, led by a giant in a bullhorn helmet. I nodded, dismissed them, and turned to my troops. Soldiers, the enemy comes with arrogance, but they chose the wrong opponent. Today, we make them pay. Earn your glory and titles. Are you afraid? Kill. A thunderous roar replaced their tension with fanatical battle intent. It's amazing how quickly a group of people can go from terrified to bloodthirsty with a little shouting. They hammered their shields, morale peaking. Buck stepped forward to adjust the formation. Hold your positions. Front line, stay like nails. No one retreats. Spearmen, follow my lead. Ika, here. Fill the gaps in the shield wall. Now, yes. The formation tightened into an impenetrable iron hedgehog. They waited in silence for the storm. Simultaneously, on the other side of the plains, Viscount Armand engaged the Federation remnants. Unlike my defensive stance, Armand took the initiative. I suppose someone had to be the aggressive one today. He observed the chaotic Federation lines with calm, winning intent. Storm City has moved, Armand ordered. Signal the marquee. Flares hissed into the sky. 3 crimson streaks burned against the blue sky. The Federation remnants saw the signal. Baron Greenforest and the others felt a sudden, ominous dread. A trap. But it was too late. The charge had begun. The Aslayed leader roared, brandishing his blade. Attack. Kill the Westerners. Reach Storm City, and we live. Driven by survival, the Federation soldiers charged. Near Gajaka Canyon, at the Clare Cavalry Camp, scouts spotted the red flares and raced toward the command tent. A scout reported breathlessly. Marquis, Viscount Armand has signaled. 3 red flares. Marquis Fry Clare emerged from his tent, clad in black armor and a dark cloak. Seeing the flares, he was momentarily surprised by the speed, but his expression quickly hardened into grim resolve. All cavalry, assemble. Bring me Windchaser, he commanded. The camp erupted into motion as 4,000 elite riders mounted up. Drawing his sword, Fry pointed toward the Dragon's Breath plains. Warriors of Clare, let the enemy hear our judgment. Charge! For Clare! For the west! The thunderous roar of 4,000 hooves shook the earth. The cavalry surged out like a black flood, racing toward the signal. The silver bells on the horses' manes, once symbols of hope, now tolled like death knells. Back at my position, I saw the flares and understood that Armand had engaged the enemy as planned. I had no time to dwell on it. The Storm City forces were closing in. My troops held a tight defensive formation, weapons gripped, eyes fixed on the approaching tide of enemies. The air grew suffocatingly heavy. I raised my recurved bow, knocking an armor-piercing arrow wreathed in black aura. I aimed at the giant in the enemy vanguard, wearing a bullhorned helmet and brandishing a massive axe. Hammer, seeing the Western Border Army's formation, looked puzzled. He couldn't grasp why they would stand and fight against such overwhelming odds. Regardless, he roared, "Brothers, these Western bastards dare to face us. Give them." Before he could finish, a cold sense of impending death gripped him. A black streak of light, an arrow, was closing in. Hammer's combat instincts kicked in. He instinctively raised his massive axe to shield his face. Clang! Sparks flew as the impact numbed his arms. A deep notch had been carved into his beloved axe. It's amazing how quickly a giant's fashion sense can be ruined by a little bit of metal. Fury erupted. "Damn you, you rat!" Hammer lost his composure. "Kill them all. Leave no one alive." He abandoned command and charged alone toward my formation like a runaway battering ram. Inspired by his ferocity, the Havgard soldiers roared and followed him into a full-scale charge. "Kill them." Buck frowned at Hammer's reckless solo charge. He couldn't leave his post, as he needed to coordinate the overall defense. My calm voice sounded behind him. "Wolfgang, stop him. Don't let him break our line." Wolfgang let out a thunderous howl and leaped forward. With several elite Wolfkin warriors, he moved like gray lightning, bypassing the shield wall to intercept Hammer. Hammer sneered, "Foolish wolf cub, I'll carve you up first." Before he could strike, I fired another arrow, piercing the horse's chest. The beast collapsed. Hammer leaped from the falling horse. He descended upon Wolfgang with his axe, aiming to cleave him in two. It was a gold-rank strike, but Wolfgang looked on with disdain. Apparently, being nearly bisected is just a minor inconvenience for him. With agile grace, he sidestepped the blow. Boom! The axe slammed into the earth, creating a crater. As Hammer's momentum stalled, Wolfgang struck, his claws glowing with gold-rank battle chi. Rip! A sickening sound of tearing metal echoed. Wolfgang's claws shredded Hammer's chest armor. Hammer was sent flying backward by the force. 5 deep, bloody gashes marred his chest. His soldiers rushed to pull him to safety. Hammer roared like a wounded beast, glaring at Wolfgang. "I will tear you apart." Wolfgang replied coldly, "Foolish." The Western troops cheered, their morale soaring. The sight of their champion wounding the enemy commander shattered the soldiers' fear. Buck seized the opportunity. He drew his sword and roared, "Charge." Buck's voice anchored the line. It's amazing how much confidence a guy can project when he's shouting at people to go get themselves killed. Shield wall, push. For Pendragon, for the west. The shield bearers surged forward. They slammed their heavy towers into the enemy. The formation became a moving steel dam, crashing into the disorganized Federation ranks. Bang! The sounds of impact and breaking bones filled the air. The Federation vanguard shattered like porcelain. Many were trampled or struck down before they could even raise their weapons. Spearmen thrust through the gaps in the shields with mechanical efficiency. Cold iron tips brought forth sprays of warm blood. The front line became a slaughterhouse. The ground turned into a mire of blood and gore. Hammer, barely alive, was dragged behind his lines. Wolfgang's strike had left him severely wounded and internally damaged. The pain forced him to regain some clarity. He watched as his men fell before the impenetrable shield wall. The enemy's flanks were closing in, and the Wolfkin warriors were wreaking havoc, leaving Hammer in a state of growing dread. They moved like ghosts along the battlefield's edge, their swift strikes tearing through formations and leaving chaos in their wake. "Scatter! Attack their flanks! Don't bunch up!" Hammer roared, spitting blood. He hoped to exploit their formation by spreading his forces thin. He had severely underestimated the raw power of my army, especially their overwhelming equipment advantage. It turns out that bringing a knife to a tank fight is generally frowned upon. The Hufgard soldiers' axes and scimitars struck the metallic, shimmering shields of their enemies. They barely left a scratch, producing only sparks against the superior armor. Conversely, the enemy's spears and blades easily pierced the Hufgard leather and light iron armor. It was a one-sided slaughter, not a fair fight. Hammer's order to scatter backfired, providing my troops with even more room to maneuver. Under Buck and my command, the soldiers exploited the gaps to slice the Federation's main force in two. Once split, their fate was sealed. My well-trained, heavily armored soldiers systematically slaughtered the isolated Federation troops. As cries filled the air, Hammer, a veteran of many wars, felt genuine terror at the tenacity of this enemy. Beyond individual prowess, their coordination was flawless. Their gear was superior even to the Hufgard Royal Guard. "Lord Hammer, we can't keep fighting." A blood-drenched officer stumbled toward him, his helmet lost. "Our losses are catastrophic. The plan is compromised. We must retreat." Hammer swung his axe, knocking away an approaching western border soldier, gasping for air. His wounds reopened, soaking him in a mixture of his own blood and his enemies. Though his strength waned, he gritted his teeth at the open plain. "Fool, turning our backs now means death by their cavalry and wolves." The officer lowered his voice, his eyes turning ruthless. "Leave the Wanlu and the other city-state trash behind as bait. Let them buy time for our Hufgard warriors to escape." Hammer's eyes lit up. "Fool, then what are you waiting for? Do it." "Yes." The officer gathered his core Hufgard troops. They forced the remaining Federation soldiers to hold the line, shifting the battlefield dynamic. Hufgard soldiers withdrew toward Hammer, forming a tight defensive shell to pull away from the front. Meanwhile, Wanlu soldiers were driven by Hufgard overseers to fill the gaps, facing my advance in despair. It's truly heartwarming to see such strong interdepartmental cooperation. The screams intensified as the abandoned soldiers fell like wheat. Amidst the chaos, an elderly man in tattered robes, Priest John, formerly of Paul Botticelli, stumbled. He fell, and nearby Wanlu men rushed to help him. Priest, stay strong, a young man cried in terror. A Hufgard overseer charged over, sword dripping with blood. Scum, who told you to stop? Fight or die. Before he could finish, a blade pierced his chest from behind. A Wanlu soldier pulled his short sword back, his eyes resolute. Priest, the soldier panted, pointing toward the retreating Hufgard forces. The Hufgard, they're running. They abandoned us. Priest John looked up. Indeed, Hammer and 1,000 Hufgard soldiers were fleeing toward Storm City. They had left the remaining hundreds to die in the slaughterhouse. My army had completed their encirclement. The end was near. Buck, observing from high ground, rode to me. My lord, their commander has fled with his core force. I, having just skewered a Federation officer with my silver, looked up. It's a shame about the dry cleaning bill, but the tactical situation was more pressing. I saw the 1,000-strong force abandoning their allies. Trying to run? My eyes turned cold. I assessed the remaining hundreds of enemies and my own exhausted, wounded men. A full pursuit might cause unnecessary casualties without guaranteeing the capture of the fleeing force. I made a choice. Order the cavalry and Wolfgang to pursue. Take as many as possible. The rest with me. I raised my silver and shouted across the field. Drop your weapons. Surrender and live. Your commander has abandoned you like a coward. Why die for a traitor? My soldiers echoed the call, shattering the enemy's remaining resolve. Drop your weapons. Surrender. Broken by death and betrayal, the Federation soldiers hesitated no longer. They threw down their bloodied weapons. Surviving overseers were either killed by their own men or forced to kneel in submission. Priest John, supported by the youth, spoke with a raspy voice to the remaining Wanlu. Drop your weapons, my children. Do not sacrifice yourselves for Hufgard's cowardice. The Wanlu, harboring deep hatred for Hufgard, surrendered immediately. I, blood-stained and weary, finally relaxed as I watched the hundreds of prisoners kneel. My white hair was matted dark with blood, which really does nothing for my complexion. I looked around. My men were wounded and exhausted, tending to the fallen. They had won, but the cost against such superior numbers was high. I leaned on my sword, watching the dust trail left by Hammer's retreat. Bind them and keep them under strict guard. I ordered Buck. The battlefield fell silent, save for the groans of the wounded and the wind. After the battle, I knelt to help a wounded soldier with his bandage, ignoring the blood on my sleeves. The victory was followed by the heavy, tedious work of cleanup. My lord, Buck's voice sounded behind me. Yes, I replied without stopping. Among the prisoners, an old man insists on seeing you. He claims he has vital information. I frowned, handed the soldier to an aide, and stood up. What kind of old man? He appears to be Wanlu, and the other prisoners seem to follow him. Buck replied. I nodded. Lead the way. Prisoners were corralled in a clearing, loosely encircled by western border soldiers with spears. Hundreds of ragged, terrified Federation soldiers huddled on the ground. Seeing me and Buck approach, particularly my blood-stained white hair, the crowd stirred with unease. Supported by a few captives, an elderly man in worn clerical robes shakily stood up. His robes bore the flowing curves of the Wanlu city-states. My lord, that's him, Buck whispered. Priest John shuffled a few steps toward me. Gasping, he looked at me and performed a Wanlu clerical salute. Greetings, honored lord. I am John, he said with strange calm. Perhaps this is our second meeting. I smirked coldly. I don't recall meeting you. John remained undeterred. I once gazed upon your peerless figure from afar beneath the great dragon gate. My gaze chilled. You participated in the Battle of Thorn City. Yes, John admitted. I served as the chaplain to our commander, Paul Botticelli. Buck's hand tightened on his sword hilt. He was ready to execute the priest at the slightest provocation. It's comforting to know my bodyguard has the impulse control of a caffeinated toddler. I signaled Buck to stand down, my eyes fixed on John. If you risked calling me here just to recount unpleasant history, let these be your final words. An invisible killing intent caused the surrounding prisoners to bow their heads in fear. John remained inexplicably calm, shaking his head. No, my lord. I want to ask, have you never wondered how the Federation knew so much about the Orlando Kingdom and the western border? I frowned. I had indeed wondered. Seeing this, John stepped forward. Buck tried to intervene, but I gestured for him to wait. John shuffled to my side, standing on his toes to whisper in my ear. His voice was like a viper's hiss. "Aren't you curious, my lord? Why we captured the impregnable Storm City so easily?" The words struck me like thunder. My pupils contracted. The fall of Storm City, the start of the western border's collapse, had always been suspicious. I grabbed John's arm, causing the old man to wince. Dragging him to a secluded spot, I demanded, "What do you know?" John winced in pain, but offered a cunning smile. "I know everything, and I will tell you. But first, let us go. Let us return home." I scoffed at the absurdity. Apparently, he thought we were just having a casual disagreement over coffee. "After what you've done, my soldiers would never allow it. Invaders must pay the price." John remained gentle, shaking his head. "Invaders? Allow me to correct you. We were the stronger side at the time. And now you've been defeated by someone stronger," I retorted. John looked confused. "My lord, isn't that the rule of the world? The strong eat the weak. The winner takes all." I was momentarily speechless. John seized the opening. "You didn't kill me immediately, which means deep down, you agree." Before he could finish, my silver blade pressed against his throat. My eyes were murderous. "Don't try to manipulate me. My patience is thin. If your next words don't satisfy me, this will be your end." John stiffened, struggling to maintain his composure. "We can join your ranks to atone. Once Storm City is reclaimed, I only ask that you let the Wanlu people go. I will stay by your side and offer my loyalty until my sins are paid." "You?" I sneered. "A dying old man. What is your loyalty worth?" Caesar Aurora once said, "Knowledge is an invaluable treasure. I have accumulated knowledge that might be useful to you." Seeing my killing intent wane, he pressed his advantage. "I can give you a name. The person who orchestrated the Battle of Thorn City and provided us with intelligence." My heart skipped a beat. I withdrew my sword. "Who?" John checked his surroundings before whispering. "The Orlando Kingdom's Minister of Intelligence, Bernard." He paused to gauge my reaction. "He is the true master of the rules, the one pulling the strings from the shadows." Bernard, the Minister of Intelligence. My pupils constricted. A high-ranking official had conspired to topple the western border. It explained everything. Despite the internal shock, I remained outwardly calm. I processed the information while scrutinizing the priest. I've always found that people who claim to have secret knowledge usually just have a death wish, but I was willing to hear him out. "How do I know you're not lying?" John replied, "The proof is in Storm City." Bernard gave Paul a signed letter with his unique seal. I hid it to protect myself. "Once Storm City falls, you will find it." I nodded, seemingly accepting the deal. However, just as John felt relieved, I made a terrifying move. I pressed my sword back against John's throat, tighter than before. "My lord, we had a deal?" John stammered in panic. My expression was unreadable, my voice chillingly calm. "Oh, I don't recall making any deals." John turned pale, unable to speak under my icy gaze. Despair washed over him. John closed his eyes in defeat. "My lord, Suddenly, a shout rang out. "Lord Eli, our reinforcements have arrived." The cheers of western border soldiers broke the silence. I looked toward the approaching banners. I sheathed my sword. The pressure vanished, and John collapsed, drenched in cold sweat. I turned away, leaving a final message in the wind. "I don't agree with you, but you were right about one thing. The strong win everything. But I am the strong one now. You have no right to bargain with me." I and Buck headed toward the approaching cavalry. The black banners of the Clare family snapped in the wind as Marquis Fry Clare, draped in a black cloak, led his cavalry forward. The Marquis pulled his reins, causing his magnificent white warhorse to rear up with a piercing neigh. It was a dramatic entrance, though I'm sure the horse would have preferred a nap. His sharp gaze swept across the chaotic battlefield. He observed the kneeling captives, the wounded western border soldiers being transported, and the troops clearing the field. Shock flickered across his face as his eyes locked onto me as I approached him. "Viscount Eli, the enemy has already been repelled?" I offered a crisp military salute. "Yes, Marquis. We routed the invaders, killing over 1,000 and capturing 500. The enemy commander fled with about 1,000 men. We are still tallying our own casualties and the final count." The Marquis listened, stunned by the scale of the victory. I had held the line against at least 3,000 foes with a smaller force. He studied the young man, realizing my tactical prowess and my troops' combat effectiveness far exceeded his expectations. Excellent. Truly excellent. The Marquis nodded, his tone filled with genuine admiration. Behind him, the cavalrymen whispered among themselves. Even these proud Clare soldiers were clearly impressed by the swift and decisive victory. The Marquis dismounted, leading his prized steed, Windchaser, toward me. He patted my shoulder firmly with his gloved hand. Eli Pendragon, I recall you once said our family's horses were your dream mounts. He thrust the reins of the white stallion into my hands. Of all the horses here, only Windchaser is worthy of your performance today. It is yours. I hesitated, clutching the reins, and began to decline. It's hard to look humble when you're suddenly holding the keys to a luxury sports car, or in this case, a very expensive horse. Marquis, this is too generous. I cannot accept your personal mount. Take it. The Marquis interrupted. I can always get another horse, and I am in high spirits today. His hearty laughter echoed across the plains, dispelling the grim atmosphere of the aftermath. Without waiting for a rebuttal, he turned to his officers. Take charge of the cleanup. Tend to the wounded, inventory the spoils, and dispose of the enemy dead. He looked back at me. You and your men have done more than enough. Go get some rest. Leave the rest of this to us. Touched by the Marquis's sincerity, I accepted, striking my chest in a salute. Thank you for your generosity, Marquis. I and Buck then began gathering our battle-worn coalition troops. Though exhausted and bloodied, the soldiers' eyes burned with the exhilaration of victory. I scanned the faces of my men and spoke loudly. Brothers, we have fulfilled our duty. We defeated a superior force. You have all done well. I, Eli Pendragon, will remember your deeds and petition Sir Lucius for your rewards. A roar of cheers erupted. Long live the Lord. Pendragon, the soldier's devotion was palpable. I raised a hand for silence. Now, return to camp. I will have hot food and clean water prepared for everyone. The troops moved out in an orderly fashion, escorting the dejected captives toward their temporary camp. I rode at the front on the snow-white Windchaser. My white hair matched the horse, and in the sunset, my eyes glinted with the golden hue of glory. I stroked the horse's mane, noting its steady, powerful gait and docile temperament. I had feared such a famous steed would be temperamental, but it was surprisingly gentle, a refreshing change of pace from the people I usually deal with. A smile eased the heavy pressure of the recent campaign. Back at camp, I immediately ordered the logistics team to prepare meals. I ensured there was plenty of clean water for my exhausted men. The captives were confined to the edge of the camp under the guard of fresh soldiers. As I inspected the area, Priest John struggled to his feet and called out, My lord, Viscount Eli, I have more vital information. Please, give me another chance. I glanced at him calmly but said nothing, turning away to continue my duties as if I hadn't heard. John watched me leave, his face falling as he collapsed back to the ground. The young Wanlu men comforted him, whispering that they had made their own choices. Vance, the guard captain, drew his sword and shouted at the stir in the prisoner pen. Quiet. Anyone who speaks again will face the consequences. As the prisoners fell silent, Western border soldiers arrived with 2 large barrels. Captain Vance, the lead soldier, reported, The Lord has ordered water for the captives. Vance checked the clear water and nodded, moved by the gesture. The Lord is truly merciful. Distribute it. Yes. Seeing the clean water, many captives, especially the Wanlu, wept openly. For the Wanlu, whose faith was tied to water, this was a sacred and precious gift. To be granted clean water while in captivity felt like a miracle of mercy. Thank you, merciful Lord. Murmurs of gratitude rose from the group. Vance maintained order, speaking with pride. Stay in line. Thank our Lord, Viscount Eli Pendragon. This is his command. Priest John stood up, helping his fellow captives form a line. He approached Vance, saluted, and spoke earnestly. Honored warrior, may I distribute this sacred water to my people? I promise no trouble. Vance recognized the priest who had spoken with the Lord earlier. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine, but no tricks. Thank you for your trust, John replied. Vance and his men watched with curiosity as John performed his ritual. I suppose watching a priest bless water is slightly more entertaining than watching prisoners sit in the dirt. John dipped his fingers into the water. He touched the lips of each captive, chanting ancient, obscure prayers. Only after this ritual did each prisoner receive a wooden ladle of water. The solemn, strange scene stood in stark contrast to the grim military camp. Meanwhile, Viscount Armand and his men arrived at the battlefield. Having finished their duties with the Federation remnants, they had rushed to support me. Seeing the Marquis directing the cleanup, Armand rode up. "Lord Fry, is the battle over? Thanks to you. Is Viscount Eli safe?" The Marquis turned, offering a wry smile. "Thanks to me? No, Armand. I arrived too late. The fighting was already finished." Armand blinked, stunned by the news. "Are you saying I and my men defeated a vastly superior force alone?" Marquis Fry Claire nodded heavily, gesturing to the battlefield littered with enemy corpses and discarded weapons. "If my eyes don't deceive me, yes. I actually did it." "Ha ha." He couldn't help but laugh again. Viscount Armand gasped, looking toward my camp with disbelief and profound awe. To hold the line and win with half the troops. I continued to redefine the limits of youthful promise, mostly by making everyone else look like they were napping on the job. Inside my command tent, I, having washed off the blood and changed into simple dark attire, sat behind a makeshift wooden table. Candlelight illuminated my young, resolute face, my white hair appearing dim in the shadows. Captain Buck stood tall, though his expression betrayed deep exhaustion. He held a tally sheet and read the figures aloud. "My lord, our total force, including Obsidian Territory, Lucerne City, and Winterborn reinforcements, was 1,634. He paused, scanning the parchment. "Casualties, 297 dead, including 54 from our own Obsidian and Lucerne forces." I stopped tapping the table, listening intently. 234 are severely wounded and unfit for further combat, 43 of whom are our own. These were the core of my force. Every loss was a heavy blow. Nearly half are lightly wounded and should recover with proper care. Silence filled the tent, save for the crackling candle. Buck looked up, his tone turning regretful. "Also, Captain Helen, who followed you from Thorn City, has been confirmed dead. Survivors say he died heroically while shielding his men from Hofguard elites." I remained expressionless, though my lowered lashes hit a storm of complex emotions. From a dozen men in the wilderness to hundreds lost in a single battle. These numbers represented once vibrant lives. They were the loyal souls who bled for the Pendragon banner. Was this progress? A bitter, self-deprecating smile touched my lips. I suppose progress is just a polite word for running out of people. I sighed, breaking the silence. "I will personally explain the compensation for the Winterborn soldiers to Viscount Armand. Beyond their family's portion, the Pendragon family will provide an additional share. Are the names of our fallen recorded?" Buck nodded, handing over the parchment. "Every name is recorded, without omission." I nodded, my gaze drifting to the harmonica in my hand. The cold metal featured intricate, ancient elven patterns shimmering in the light. I rubbed the instrument, lost in thought, leaving Buck puzzled. Does the Lord play the harmonica? It seemed so out of character. Well, not well, at least. Buck heard the clumsy notes and silently retracted his assessment. Seeing my lonely silhouette, Buck felt a pang of sympathy. He cleared his throat to shift the heavy mood. "My lord, good news. The supply train has arrived. They brought essential supplies, including live sheep and fresh produce. I've ordered the cooks to prepare a feast for tonight. We need to host Marquis Fry Claire and his cavalry, alongside Viscount Armand's men." I snapped back to reality, offering Buck a weary but genuine smile. "Well done, Captain Buck. Your foresight is appreciated. Thank you for always being by my side and supporting me. Everything you've done, I will keep in my heart." Buck was stunned by the sincere gratitude, his eyes stinging with sudden emotion. He took a deep breath to suppress his tears. He realized I was no longer the exiled noble boy who needed constant guidance. War and power had forged me into a leader at an astonishing pace. "My lord," Buck said, his voice thick but steady, striking his chest. "It is my duty. I, Buck, pledge my life to the Pendragon family until my end." I chuckled at the slip of the tongue. "Pendragon? I suppose I've officially rebranded, then. Buck smiled back, genuinely. It's all the same. To him, I was his lord, regardless of the surname. I pocketed the harmonica and turned to a more pressing matter. Buck, during your time in the capital, what do you know of Bernard, the Minister of Intelligence? Buck's expression turned serious as he recalled. Marquis Leon mentioned him a few times when he served as captain of the Royal Guard. Oh, tell me more. I leaned in. His rise was legendary. Buck began. He was the son of a common fisherman from the Eastern Territory. A fisherman's son? I raised an eyebrow. A commoner with no background reaching the rank of Minister of Intelligence. Yes, my lord. He was discovered by a young master of the Russell family and brought to the capital. Later, he gained the favor of the then Prime Minister, Cons Montauban, becoming his confidant. That launched his political career, leading to his current position. Even with Duke Federico in charge, Bernard remains a key figure. Marquis Leon described him as smooth on the surface, but deeply treacherous. I tapped the table rhythmically. Treacherous. If this man orchestrated the Battle of Thorn City, he wasn't just treacherous. He was playing with the fate of the entire kingdom. Apparently, he didn't get the memo that people are supposed to be boring. Could the fall of Storm City also be linked to him? Or perhaps the late Prime Minister Cons Montauban? One more thing, my lord, Buck added. There is a rumor circulating in the capital about him. What is it? I asked. Buck coughed awkwardly and lowered his voice. It is said he gained the Russell family's favor by offering them his beautiful wife and his young, pretty sister to secure his advancement. My eyes narrowed, a sharp, dangerous glint flashing within them. If the rumors are true, Bernard is not only deeply calculating, but also utterly devoid of moral boundaries. He is capable of heinous acts to climb the social ladder. A figure lurking in the shadows of the kingdom's power center is far more dangerous than imagined. I suppose I should be impressed by the sheer commitment to being a terrible human being. A soldier's voice pierced the tent. Viscount Eli, Marquis Freyclair invites you to the celebration banquet. I shook off my thoughts on Bernard and turned to Buck with a relaxed expression. Time to eat. Let's go, Buck. They walked toward the brightest, loudest part of the camp. The roar of the crowd hit them before they arrived. Bonfires lit the clearing, surrounded by officers and soldiers. They laughed, slapped shoulders, and boasted of their day's valor. As I appeared, eyes began to focus on me. The noise dipped, then erupted into cheers. Oh, it's Viscount Eli Pendragon. Haha, Lord Eli is here. A true hero. I offered a polite smile and nodded to the crowd without stopping. I spotted Wolfgang and his Wolfkin warriors in a separate area. They were eating quietly. I signaled Buck to join them. I followed an attendant to the central command tent. The tent was spacious and elegantly furnished. 5 men sat around a linen-covered table. Viscount Armand, Sir Solon, Marquis Freyclair, and 2 others. The 2 strangers, dressed in noble livery, were clearly key vassals of the Marquis. The cheers outside drew the attention of everyone inside. I entered to immediate praise. Viscount Eli sit. Marquis Freyclair laughed heartily. He pointed to a seat and introduced the men. Bam, Mark. This is the rising star of our West, Viscount Eli Pendragon. I waved my hand modestly. My lords, please. I'm just here for the food. I've heard enough praise to be full already. My witty humility drew laughter, easing the atmosphere. It's amazing how far a little feigned modesty gets you when you're actually just hungry. I sat beside Sir Solon, exchanging nods as a servant placed silver cutlery before me. The conversation naturally turned to the afternoon's battle. The veteran generals were eager for details, and I recounted the engagement. I described my defensive formation, the counterattack against Hammer, and the capture of prisoners. When I mentioned the pivotal role of Wolfgang and the Wolfkin, especially Wolfgang's strike against the enemy commander, the Marquis raised an eyebrow. Wolfkin, the powerful warrior outside? A gold rank expert. Baron Bam added. Lord Fry, Viscount Eli's charm is extraordinary. Such talented demi-human tribes are rare, mostly found in the remote north. The Marquis nodded, looking at me with increased interest. Viscount Armand smiled warmly. Eli, your soldiers are indeed formidable. Defeating the Federation with fewer numbers is a testament to your courage and leadership. I will report your merits to Lord Lucius. I thanked him with a nod. Lord Armand, how did your side fare? Armand laughed, full of victory. With the Marquis's cavalry, the enemy was completely annihilated. Not one escaped. The Marquis looked proud. Between our kills and yours, Storm City has suffered a massive blow. Once we surround the city, the siege will be much easier. The tent erupted in agreement. We rest here until Marquis Milan and the main force arrive, Armand planned. He looked at Solon. Any news from Lord Milan? Solon shook his head. Not yet, but he should arrive soon. Baron Mark interjected. Marquis Marcus's infantry should also arrive soon. Once we unite, we take Storm City. And then, we hold a grand wedding for our young Viscount. Ha ha. His teasing drew more laughter, as if I didn't have enough on my plate without adding a marriage to the itinerary. I offered a wry smile and raised my glass to Mark. Baron Mark, drink. I hoped to silence the talkative man. Flattered, Mark raised his glass in response. To you, Viscount Eli. Their glasses clinked. To victory and the glory of the West. Armand proposed. To victory. To the West. The tent reached a climax of celebration. After several rounds, the Marquis's face was flushed. Tipsy, he slammed the table and glared at Solon. Solon, tell me the truth. What is going on with you and my daughter Vina? I perked up, eager for some noble gossip. Nothing improves a war council quite like a messy romantic scandal. Solon, startled, blushed, and stammered. Lord Fry, Miss Vina is just interested in herbalism. We just exchange notes, and the age gap, we are just friends. His voice trailed off. Viscount Armand watched with a knowing look. It was clearly more than friendship. He hadn't expected the gentle Solon to capture the heart of the Marquis's headstrong daughter. If they wed, Solon's position as heir to the Winterbourne family would be unshakable. This was excellent news for his supporters. Baron Mark laughed, teasing him. Right, friends. Sir Solon, that reminds me of my own youth. Baron Bam tugged at Baron Mark's sleeve, sensing he was about to say something inappropriate. Baron Mark, tipsy and dismissive, waved him off and continued. We were just friends. That's what I told all my mates back then. Until later. Until my late, lovely wife's belly grew too large to hide. Ha! Marquis Fryclaire's face darkened visibly before Mark could finish. Baron Bam felt a sense of impending disaster. He lunged forward, clamping a hand over Mark's mouth to silence him. He offered an awkward, apologetic smile to the fuming Marquis. My Lord Fry, please ignore this old fool. He's drunk and babbling. I'll take him out to sober up. He dragged the struggling, muttering Baron out of the tent. The remaining guests exchanged glances and burst into laughter. Even Marquis Fryclaire couldn't help but shake his head with a wry, helpless smile. Lorendale, the capital of the Southern Territory, sits along the dream-weaving river. The river acts as a ribbon connecting the fertile southern plains to the capital, Orlandia. Lorendale is the Medici family's commercial hub and seat of power. Its warm, humid climate is ideal for agriculture. A vast water network transports grain to the royal territory and the west, sustaining Orlandia. The docks are currently a chaotic symphony of shouting laborers and clashing ships. Sweat-drenched men form human chains, moving heavy sacks between the docks and cargo ships. The grain, a bounty from the southern lands, is being rapidly loaded for transport. Move it. Faster. Don't slack off. You can't afford to delay our business. Foremen pace the docks, barking orders to ensure efficiency. A father and son take a brief rest near a quiet pier. The son gulps water from a skin and hands it to his father. Father. The young man gestures at the frantic activity, confused. The docks haven't been this busy in ages. Is there a famine in Orlandia? The gray-haired father drinks and tosses the skin back, grunting. Don't worry about the nobles. Just work hard and earn your silver. You're old enough to save for a wife. The son sighs, annoyed by the mention of marriage. I don't want to marry. I'm going to explore the lower dream-weaving river with Remus. They say there are ancient ruins and sunken treasures there. The father sighs, pushing himself up on tired knees. He grabs his pole and heads back to work, calling over his shoulder. Stop dreaming. Those are lies for fools. The river's currents will kill you. Get back to work. The boy follows, arguing. But you know I can swim. Father, listen. Similar scenes play out across all of Lorendale's docks. Following the alliance between Federico La Roche, Duke of the West and Regent, and the Medici family, News arrived via Marquis Bourbon. Duke Harksun Medici began fulfilling his promise, shipping massive amounts of grain to alleviate the capital's famine and prove his sincerity. It's amazing how much sincerity a few tons of wheat can buy. High above the noise, the Medici castle overlooks the river. Inside Duke Harksun's opulent study, there is chaos. A fierce family storm is brewing. Duke Harksun, the cunning ruler of the south, looks weary. He watches his favorite daughter, Isabella Medici, pacing like an enraged viper. Harksun Medici, you liar. Am I just a piece of cargo to you? Isabella shrieks, smashing an expensive gold-inlaid inkwell. Ink stains the fine wool carpet. You promised I could choose my own husband. She reaches for a colorful porcelain vase from Luasia. Isabella, calm down. Her brother, Robert Medici, intervenes. He is handsome but effeminate, his face flushed with anxiety. Isabella turns her rage toward him. Huh, my dear brother, you should wear a wig and a dress and pose in the taverns. You'd be more popular than the cheapest harlot. You look more like a woman than I do. Why don't you go marry him instead? The insult strikes Robert like a poisoned blade. He turns red, veins bulging, and raises his hand to strike her. Enough! Duke Harksun's voice booms with authority. Robert freezes under his father's intense gaze. It's amazing how quickly he loses his nerve when he isn't trying to hit a woman. Harksun looks at his daughter with cold resolve. Isabella, you are a Medici. You enjoy the glory of this name. You must bear its burdens. Marriage is your duty. You must go to Orlandia. Isabella tries to argue, eyes red. I know I promised, but times have changed. Don't be willful. He is the king. You will be queen, and your children will rule Orlando. Children. Isabella laughs bitterly. Aiden Aurora is a child himself. Am I to be his mother? Perhaps that would be fitting. Harksun stares at her calmly. Marquis Bourbon will look after you. You are a Medici and a queen. No one will defy you. Queen? I hope I don't end up like Queen Irene, she curses. She shoves Robert aside and storms out, slamming the door. Harksun sighs, turning to his son. Robert, go. He stops, realizing the siblings' mutual hatred. He rubs his temples. Prepare for the visit to the capital. You will represent the Medici family at your sister's wedding. Remember, you represent the honor of the South. Do not embarrass us. Robert bows, suppressing his rage. Yes, father. I will handle it. As Robert leaves, the room falls into a heavy, gunpowder-scented silence. Duke Harksun sits alone in his high-backed chair. I surveyed the room my daughter had trashed, my gaze lingering on the shattered trinkets and stained carpets. A flicker of pain for the lost wealth crossed my face, quickly eclipsed by profound exhaustion. I navigated business and politics with ease, yet I remained clumsy and failed in my relationships with my children, Robert, Isabella, and Saluda. I leaned back, closing my eyes to shut out the world. It's truly impressive how I can manage a kingdom's worth of trade, but can't get two people to stop screaming at each other for 5 minutes. After a long silence, I opened my eyes and habitually pulled a finely minted gold coin from my desk drawer. I flicked the coin into the air. It traced a golden arc before landing on the smooth desktop with a sharp ding. The coin didn't settle immediately, spinning slowly on the surface due to its momentum. Storm City, Central Lord's Mansion. The fireplace flames danced, casting flickering shadows across General Amon's rugged, rage-distorted face. He sank into his ornate throne, his rough fingers gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles turned white. Before him, Hammer knelt on one knee, his bull-horned helmet set aside to reveal a chest wrapped in thick bandages. Pale and stripped of his usual arrogance, he looked like a man suffering the wretched aftermath of a narrow escape. My lord, we failed. Hammer sobbed, his voice trembling as he recounted the crushing defeat at the Dragon Breath Plains. Failed? Amon surged from his throne, his roar vibrating through the hall. How? I gave you 3,000 men. You useless waste, you couldn't even handle a simple extraction. In his fury, he raised a gauntlet fist to strike Hammer's unprotected head. Seeing the blood-soaked bandages and Hammer's genuine frailty, he stopped mid-swing. He slammed his fist into the armrest instead. Hammer breathed a sigh of relief. His gamble worked. He dared not admit his reckless overconfidence, so he continued weaving his web of lies. A hobby he clearly practiced more than his swordplay. My lord, Our plan was leaked. We were ambushed by at least 5,000 Western border troops. They had gold-rank powerhouses. That savage wolfkin ambushed me. He gestured to his wound. Our Havgard warriors fought bravely, killing countless enemies, but they were endless. I barely managed to bring back our core forces. The Federation trash and Wanlu prisoners. I couldn't save them. Iman's rage subsided into a brooding, muttered silence. Leaked? Damn it. I said attacking was too dangerous. You all insisted. He complained, conveniently forgetting he had personally authorized the operation. Burn the strategist and Hammer exchanged a helpless glance. Burn sighed, knowing it wasn't the time for blame, and stepped forward to shoulder the responsibility. General Amon, it is my fault. I misjudged the Westerners' cunning and preparation. Fortunately, General Hammer preserved our core Havgard strength. The losses were merely expendable Federation soldiers and Wanlu prisoners. They are insignificant. The situation is not yet dire. Iman waved him off impatiently. Enough. Discussing blame is useless now. He leaned back, his face etched with deep anxiety. The Westerners will surely gather their forces to storm Storm City. What do we do? Burn hesitated, then voiced the suggestion he had been contemplating. My lord, let us retreat. Abandon Storm City, cross the Set Desert, and return to Havgard. Return. Iman's brow furrowed. To go back in such disgrace? I'd rather die here. We killed Paul Botticelli. Cessin died under my orders. He was the Grand Forgemaster's grandson. How could we face the Federation or the Grand Forgemaster? General, Burn urged. That doesn't matter. We can make excuses. Honor is worthless compared to survival. We must save our remaining Havgard warriors. As long as we live, there is hope. Strategist, Hammer, despite his injuries, glared at Burn and roared his opposition. You just want to save your own skin. Don't forget what the Westerners did to your home. General Amon, I refuse to retreat. We must have revenge. If we die like Havgard warriors, taking as many Western bastards with us as possible. Iman sighed, feeling a crushing sense of helplessness. It's hard to feel like a conqueror when you're currently deciding which flavor of failure to choose. Any word from the reinforcements sent to Havgard? Burn shook his head. None. The Set Desert is too treacherous. Please decide quickly. The weather is turning cold. Once winter hits, the desert will be impassable. Iman stared into the fireplace for a long time. His hesitation hardened into cruelty. He straightened up. Enough. No more arguing. Hammer, reinforce the city defenses immediately. Mobilize every soldier, check weapons, and stockpile supplies. It isn't over. If they want Storm City, they will pay in blood. Hammer stood, ignoring his pain. Yes, General Amon. I will live and die with Storm City. He grabbed his helmet and limped out to execute the orders. Only Amon and Burn remained. Iman looked at his strategist, his voice dropping to a low, complex tone. Strategist, you go too. Aside from the defenses, make some secondary preparations. If we fail, we must not leave a pristine Storm City for the Westerners. Burn trembled, his face paling. He whispered, My lord. You mean, fire? Iman nodded coldly. Burn bowed his head to hide his expression. Yes, General Amon. He replied, silently praying for forgiveness for the sin he was about to commit. Burn turned and hurried out, his silhouette hunched and panicked in the firelight. Iman was left alone in the vast palace, the crackling of the fire the only sound. He reached out and stroked the cold, luxurious throne. Good throne. He chuckled, his voice raspy and dry. It's nice to know at least one piece of furniture in this kingdom has its priorities straight. You're still quite comfortable, quite firm. The laughter faded into a long, weary sigh. A pity, he muttered, his eyes vacant. In the end, you were never mine. Meanwhile, at the edge of the Dragon Breath Plains, the mood in the Western Allied Forces camp was vastly different. Marquis Milan Winterborn arrived with the Southern Main Force, successfully linking up with Viscount Armand, myself, and Marquis Fryclair. The massive camp was filled with banners and high morale. After hearing Viscount Armand's report on the successful defensive battle and the critical roles played by myself and Marquis Fryclair, Marquis Milan's usually gentle face beamed with undisguised praise and joy. He specifically lauded me, patting my shoulder and calling me the model for the West's younger generation. I suppose being a model is just a polite way of saying I'm the one they're willing to send into the line of fire first. Solon also received praise for his contributions. More exciting news followed. Scouts from Marquis Marcus Hohenzollerns's Central Force and Marquis Karl Korra's Northern Army arrived, confirming they were closing in. The main forces have cleared the surrounding towns and are marching toward the Dragon Breath Plains, arriving shortly. Victory is certain. The remaining forces of General Amon in Storm City are trapped. The Western Allied forces now only need to await the final two main armies. Once united, the three-pronged force will launch a final assault to reclaim the fortress that represents the West's honor and shame. The camp is electric with tension as soldiers sharpen weapons and officers refine siege tactics. The storm is about to break. 2 days later, the Western Allied forces completed their assembly on the Dragon Breath Plains. Marcus Hohenzollerns's Central Force and Marquis Karl Korra's Northern Army, fresh from mountain battles, arrived at their positions. Banners of the Hohenzollern, Korra, Winterborn, and Freiclair families, along with many others, rose across the plains. The combined might of the West stood like a giant fist aimed at the isolated fortress. With nearly 40,000 troops, the sprawling camp was a spectacle of power. Banners blocked the sun, and the air was thick with a palpable sense of vengeful confidence. The previous victories of mine, Viscount Armand, and Freiclair had greatly boosted morale. Most soldiers believed Storm City would fall quickly. The command tent was packed. The four marquises, Marcus Hohenzollern, Milan Winterborn, Karl Korra, and Freiclair, led the council. They were surrounded by high-ranking officers, vassals, and successful pioneer lords. I was present, recognizing many pioneer lords I had met at Thorn City. It seemed many had earned their place here through battlefield merit. I caught the hostile gaze of Camilla Russell from the Eastern Territory. I ignored her, focusing instead on the War Council. Marcus Hohenzollern stood before a large map of Storm City, his voice booming. "Gentlemen, our forces are assembled. Only one piece of the puzzle remains, Storm City." He pointed firmly at the city on the map. "We must decide how to reclaim our honor with minimal cost and maximum speed." The tent erupted in hushed discussion. It's amazing how much noise a room full of people trying to be quiet can actually make. A sharp-eyed young noble behind Marquis, Freiclair, spoke up. "Marquis Marcus, do we have detailed structural maps? Are there hidden passages, like sewers or ancient aqueducts?" Marcus shook his head regretfully. "Unfortunately, Count Weiss and his core vassals died when the city fell. The blueprints were likely lost. However," he added, "Sir Lucius is en route and may possess intelligence we lack." Marquis Karl Korra spoke with his characteristic cold composure. "Marcus, I advise against an immediate assault." All eyes turned to him. "Karl, explain," Marcus prompted. Korra gestured to the map. "Despite the efforts of Viscount Eli and Viscount Armand, we must be realistic. Storm City is an unfallen fortress for a reason. Its walls are exceptionally thick. Furthermore, our long march has depleted our heavy siege equipment, like ladders and rams. A rash assault would lead to catastrophic casualties. I propose a siege to cut off their supplies. With limited grain, their morale will crumble, and the city will fall without a fight. This is the safest, most cost-effective path." Dissent immediately arose, because apparently, waiting for people to starve isn't dramatic enough for this crowd. Count Hanad stood up urgently. "Marquis Korra, your plan is safe, but our 40,000 troops consume a fortune daily. Logistics will fail us. Sir Lucius ordered a resolution within a month. We cannot afford to wait." Korra remained calm. "Our supplies will outlast theirs. They will break first. Time is tight, but the lives of Western soldiers are more precious than deadlines or pride." Count Punch joined the fray. "Marquis Korra, your mercy is admirable. But this is about the honor of the West. The entire kingdom is watching. If we sit and wait for them to starve despite our superior numbers, the nobles in the capital will mock us. This is not a glorious victory." "I disagree." Tension spiked as the two factions clashed. Marquis Milan Winterborn stepped in, his gentle voice soothing the room. "Gentlemen, please, let us not lose our composure." He nodded to Korra. "Your concern for our soldiers is valid. He turned to Marcus, his expression hardening. This battle is not just about our honor. I have been considering that time is more precious than we think. Don't forget, our Duke of the West, Federico, is currently in the power vortex of the royal capital. If we get bogged down in a long siege, the nobles in the royal territory might see our absence as an opportunity to move against the Duke. We would be trapped. As Sir Lucius said, we must finish this quickly. Milan's analysis silenced the room, leaving the supporters of a siege deep in thought. Even Cora sighed, unable to argue against the risk to the Duke. Marquis Freyclair laughed, breaking the heavy atmosphere. He clapped his hands. Perhaps we are overestimating the Federation's morale. How have you all felt fighting them? His words sparked laughter and agreement among the officers. Frey is right. They look fierce but crumble at the first strike. Exactly. No wall can stop the resolve of our Western warriors. The mood turned optimistic and aggressive. Marcus slammed his fist onto the map, apparently deciding that furniture was the real enemy. Then it is decided. Prepare for the final assault. We attack at dawn the day after tomorrow. Before that, I will send an envoy to demand surrender. Who knows? General Amon surrendered the city out of fear at the sight of our overwhelming forces. Marcus Hohenzollern chuckled. It saves us the trouble of a fight. Ha ha. Let him witness the true power of the West. The Marquis's mockery sparked confident, boisterous laughter among the officers, as if victory were already secured. Amidst the optimism, I frowned slightly. Watching the arrogant nobles and officers treat Storm City as a prize, a deep, inexplicable sense of foreboding stirred within me. I could only hope the coming battle would be as smooth as they anticipated. Tensions mounted as the night passed, and the second day arrived. At dawn, the mist over the Dragon Breath plains vanished under the rising sun and the sheer mass of the gathering army. The Western Allied forces arrayed themselves beneath the towering black walls of Storm City. Dense phalanxes and fluttering noble banners created a scene of immense, oppressive power. The cold glint of armor formed a steel carpet across the plains, a silent declaration of absolute force. Count Hanad, leading the vanguard, sat armored atop his warhorse. Surrounded by elite guards, he rode toward the edge of the city's firing range. He was tasked with commanding the first wave of 10,000 elite soldiers in a direct assault. I and my Obsidian Territory troops, along with Wolfgang's Wolfkin, were originally in the vanguard. However, due to their previous losses during the interception, Marcus granted them leave to serve as reserves. I sat on my horse, Windchaser, in front of the archers, observing the ramparts. It's a great view, provided you ignore the imminent threat of being turned into a pincushion. Count Hanad reined in his horse, locking eyes with the red-haired giant, Amon, on the battlements. Amon, preparing for a futile resistance? Ha ha, open the gates and beg for mercy, and perhaps you'll keep your head. He laughed mockingly. I heard the Havgard army prides itself on warrior honor and duels before battle. What? Have you become cowards in the West? Are you warriors or spineless fools? Come down and face me if you have the guts. The insult sent the Havgard soldiers into a frenzy. Despite their fear of the massive army, their pride flared, and they shouted back, "Damn Westerners! Go back to your mothers. Stupid pigs! You are provoking a sleeping lion." Hanad's guards retorted with even cruder insults. "Federation scum! Kneel and beg like dogs, and maybe we'll spare you. Look, a Federation soldier. Is that urine in your pants? Ha ha ha." On the wall, Hammer scowled at the arrogant old man, his old scars throbbing. He grabbed his bullhorn helmet and requested permission to fight. "Lord Amon, lower me down. I'll cut that old man's head off and be back in a flash." Amon ignored the foolish request, turning to his pale strategist, Burn. "Drop it," he ordered. Burn trembled but relayed the command. A round object was tossed from the high wall, landing with a dull thud in the mud below. Silence fell over the army. It was a severed head. Though distorted by death, Hanad and his guards recognized it instantly. It was the envoy Marcus had sent to demand surrender. Hanad's laughter froze, replaced by boiling rage. Staring at Amon, he gnashed his teeth and growled, "Amon, I will kill you." His guards roared in fury, hands gripping their sword hilts. In contrast, the Federation soldiers on the walls erupted in jeers and whistles. It's amazing how quickly a hostage situation turns into a rowdy tavern brawl. Suppressing the urge to charge, Hanad turned to a guard. Retrieve the envoy's head. He then wheeled his horse around, drew his great sword, and galloped before his lines. He struck his blade against the soldiers' weapons, creating a rhythmic, metallic clamor. Soldiers, warriors of the West, his voice rasped with fury. You saw it. The Federation bastards insulted our envoy and our honor. This is no longer just about reclaiming land. It is about vengeance. We will wash away this shame in blood. He pointed his sword at Storm City and roared. I order that when the assault begins, leave no Federation soldier alive. Kill them all. The first to breach the walls will be promoted 3 ranks and receive 1,000 gold coins. Charge. Ooh. The promise of gold and vengeance ignited the fury of the 10,000 elite soldiers. A roar like a tidal wave erupted. Their morale reached its peak. All forces, charge. Hanad swung his sword down. Kill. Like a broken dam, the black tide surged forward. Shield-bearers roared, advancing with heavy steps. Behind them, engineers carried ladders and soldiers pushed heavy battering rams. The earth trembled under their feet. In the rear, I knocked an armor-piercing arrow, my hawk-like eyes scanning for high-value targets, or at least someone who looked like they were in charge of this mess. Iman watched the swarming army with a cruel sneer. He took a breath and shouted to his troops. Brothers, let these fools taste a Hovgard specialty. Fire. Gears groaned from the towers and battlements. Hum. Whoosh. Dozens of spear-sized bolts shrieked through the air from the firing ports. Simultaneously, a cloud of arrows rained down upon the charging army. Shields up, the veteran Western soldiers shouted. A mobile roof of interlocked shields formed over the charging ranks. Arrows clattered harmlessly against the sturdy shields. However, the giant bolts were the true threat. They tore through wooden shields and bodies alike, skewering multiple soldiers at once and pinning them to the ground in a spray of blood. While the total casualties were not massive, the psychological impact was devastating. The sheer carnage stalled the momentum of the Western charge. My eyes narrowed. My bowstring hummed, and an arrow wreathed in black energy struck a ballista officer in the eye, killing him instantly. Suppress the archers. Target the ballista crews. I ordered my archers, while I continued to fire. Every shot from me claimed a life on the ramparts, piercing throats or skulls with lethal precision. My precise, lethal long-range strikes forced the defenders to cower behind the battlements. This suppressed their fire, significantly reducing both the accuracy and frequency of their volleys. Hammer shielded General Amon with his massive frame, shouting a warning. General Amon, watch out. It's that white-haired brat. His archery is wicked. I suffered greatly because of him last time. Count Hanad, observing from the ranks, seized the moment of suppressed fire and roared, brandishing his sword. They're low on giant bolts. Charge. The first to scale the wall belongs to the House of Hanad. Charge. Inspired, the Western Border Army surged forward, braving the sparse arrows to reach the base of Storm City's walls. Boom! The soldiers swung a heavy battering ram, slamming it into the iron-reinforced gate with a deafening crash that shook the gatehouse. I've always found that doors are rarely as sturdy as the people behind them hope. Simultaneously, ladders were raised, their iron hooks biting deep into the masonry. Western border soldiers swarmed up like ants, blades in their teeth and shields raised. The defenders retaliated, dumping logs and boulders down upon them. They thrust spears and poured boiling gold juice, filling the air with screams, roars, and the clash of steel. The bloody, brutal siege had begun. Lives were extinguished every second, staining the foundation and soil with blood. Attack. Keep attacking. Don't stop. Count Hanad's voice was hoarse amidst the carnage, yet remained resolute. The battlefield had become a vortex of death. I, positioned with the archers, felt my hands split and bleed, the pain burning with every draw. I had lost count of my arrows and the number of coalition waves. Suddenly, a roar of triumph erupted. They're up. Wolfgang is on the wall. My focus snapped to the source. Wolfgang stood atop the wall, his gray form towering. His golden eyes burned with bloodlust as his claws tore through the Hovgard soldiers like straw. He acted as a spearhead, carving a gap in the defense to buy time for the climbers. General Amon spotted the beastly warrior and barked at Hammer. Hammer, go, kill that animal. Hammer let out a wild war cry, charging through his own ranks with his massive hammer toward Wolfgang. Wolfgang sensed the lethal threat from his flank. Having just skewered a spearman, he caught sight of the massive figure lunging at him. He dodged, and Hammer's blow smashed into the stone, shattering the battlements. Humph, Hammer sneered. Hammer pivoted, sweeping his hammer horizontally toward Wolfgang's legs in a lightning-fast maneuver. Wolfgang couldn't fully evade the strike. The heavy head grazed his left hind leg, cutting deep through fur and muscle, drawing blood. Wolfgang faltered, and the surrounding Havgard soldiers swarmed him like sharks. Wolfgang, I shouted. Wolfgang met my eyes, reading the warning, and felt a surge of bitter humiliation. With a low growl, he forced himself to retreat, leaping backward. He used his claws to catch the wall and the swaying ladders. With a clumsy, desperate scramble, he dropped back to the ground. He landed, gasping, his leg bleeding profusely, barely able to stand. Western border soldiers rushed to support him, dragging him to safety. The Havgard defenders cheered, their morale soaring at the sight of Wolfgang's retreat. General Amon's command proved effective. The Havgard soldiers showed surprising resilience and discipline. Under his direction, the defenders successfully repelled several more attempts to breach the wall. Count Hanad watched as the gap Wolfgang had opened was quickly sealed. He slammed his fist against the command carriage in frustration. He scanned the battlefield anxiously. At the gate, soldiers continued to swing the battering ram. Eve, 1-2 strike. Despite the thunderous impacts, the gate remained unmoved. The base of the wall was carpeted with debris and the corpses of Western border soldiers. Blood pooled in the dirt, emitting a nauseating stench. Count Hanad stared up at the daunting, towering walls, feeling a sense of absurd resentment, as if the masonry had personally offended him by existing. Why had they built these walls so high and strong? Suddenly, his eyes widened. Defenders were tipping massive barrels of black liquid, oil, onto the soldiers below. Oil. It's oil. Everyone retreat. Fall back now. The realization hit the Count. He screamed the order with every ounce of his strength. The veteran soldiers, recognizing the scent and the black rain, needed no further warning. Panic spread like a plague. Abandoning formation, the soldiers turned and fled in terror. Dylan, move. A soldier tried to drag his brother, who had fallen from a ladder with broken legs. Brother, leave me. Go, the injured man cried, pushing him away. Shut up, Mother said. Before he could finish, a gray blur swept past. Wolfgang. Despite his injury, Wolfgang rushed to them. He scooped up both brothers with his powerful arms and hurled them toward the safety of the rear. Other soldiers caught them and helped them flee. Only Wolfgang and a dozen volunteers remained near the wall. They scrambled to drag the remaining wounded away from the kill zone. Above, a Havgard officer raised a burning torch, preparing to ignite the oil. I, watching intently, acted on instinct, drawing my bow and aiming at the officer. I've always been a fan of ruining someone's big moment. Despite my agonizing hand and leaden arms, I fired. The arrow pierced the officer's throat. The torch slipped from his hand, landing harmlessly on the walkway. Wolfgang, run, I screamed. At that moment, I saw another soldier reaching for the fallen torch. I held my breath, drawing my bow to full tension despite the agonizing tear of my muscle fibers. I aimed at the falling torch, my only chance for a long-range intervention. Snap! A heart-stopping crack echoed. My recurved bow, worn from countless battles, finally shattered under the strain. It was a spectacular way to announce my retirement from archery. The broken string whipped back, lashing across my already battered right hand. A deep, bone-revealing gash opened on my hand, blood gushing out. Damn it, I hissed, my heart sinking. Fortunately, this happened just before the torch landed. Wolfgang and his remaining dozen men had managed to drag the last of the wounded out of the kill zone to safety. At that moment, defenders on other sections of the wall rained down more torches. Boom! A wall of scorching fire erupted along the base of Storm City with a deafening roar. The orange flames surged, consuming everything below: siege ladders, battering rams, discarded weapons, and the remains of the western border soldiers who hadn't escaped. The heat wave forced the retreating coalition soldiers back, their faces illuminated by the fire, reflecting fear and lingering terror. Ignoring the stabbing pain in my hand, I dismounted. I rushed forward to help the exhausted Wolfgang, pulling him further back to safety. Count Hanid stood among the retreating troops, shouting hoarsely as he tried to rally the survivors. His face was a mask of defeat, anger, and grief. I scanned the chaotic, miserable scene and made a rough estimate. Of the 10,000-strong Vanguard Legion, barely half remained standing. The setting sun bled across the Dragon Breath plains. Count Hanid struggled to gather his broken vanguard. The survivors were wounded, disheveled, and haunted by their narrow escape from the inferno. The once mighty legion now looked pathetic and sparse as they returned to the main coalition line. The bravado from earlier had vanished, replaced by deep shame and failure. He knelt before Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern, his voice raspy. "My lord Marcus, Hanid has failed. I await your punishment." Marcus looked past the kneeling count toward the still imposing Storm City. The Hovgard banner still flew atop the walls. The brutal assault had failed to breach the defenses or cause chaos. The gate remained untouched. With no collapse of the enemy, the commander had been forced to watch the failure. The defeat served as a cold wake-up call to the coalition leaders who had grown arrogant from recent victories. Marcus sighed, heavy with reflection. He dismounted and placed a hand on Hanid's blood-stained shoulder. "Rise, Hanid," he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "This is not your fault alone. We were all too impatient." Without looking at the grateful count, he turned to the coalition army and issued his final order. "Retreat. Return to camp." The order spread, and the massive army began an orderly withdrawal, the main force clearing a path. They carried their wounded comrades back to the rear encampment. While costly, the Vanguard's defeat had not crippled the coalition's foundation. The losses were manageable. With rest and reinforcements, they could strike again. Marquis Milan Winterborn rode up to me. He noticed my blood-soaked hands and Wolfgang's bandaged, bleeding leg. Milan's gentle smile vanished, replaced by a heavy sigh. "Eli," he noted, looking at the hand. "How is your injury?" I offered a bitter smile. The string snapped at the last moment. "It's nothing serious." Milan took a small, antique wooden jar from his guard and handed it to me. "I suppose it's the thought that counts, even if the jar looks like it survived the fall of the last empire. Take this. Clean the wound with fresh water and apply this ointment morning and night. It is a secret Winterborn family remedy. You'll be back to normal in days." I accepted it with my left hand, bowing my head. "Thank you, my lord Milan. I will remember this kindness." Milan shook his head, looking self-reproachful. "No need. I share the blame for this failure. We were indeed too hasty. We underestimated the city's defenses and the desperation of the Federation soldiers." I comforted the old Marquis. "My lord, do not dwell on it. This is war. Once the drums sound, no one can guarantee victory. It is not your fault alone. Our main force is intact, while the city's supplies dwindle with every passing day. If we learn from this, we will surely take the city next time." Milan nodded, his mood lifting slightly. "I hope you are right." On the walls of Storm City, General Amon watched the retreating army and laughed heartily. "Huh, look at that. The Hovgard warriors have driven the Westerners back. They're running away with their tails between their legs. General Amon is mighty. Long live Hovgard." The soldiers cheered, pounding their chests in wild celebration. They vented the pent-up fear and oppression of the siege. "Ha!" Amon roared, savoring the victory. "They're nothing but paper tigers. If they dare return, the fire will be their end." Barren, the strategist, approached cautiously once the excitement died down. "General, we have repelled them, but our supplies, especially the heavy ballista bolts, are mostly exhausted. Also, our casualties are high. We must tend to the wounded." Amon, annoyed, raised his gauntlet hand to strike Barren. Seeing Barren's frail frame, he changed his aim. Clang! He struck Hammer, who was cheering mindlessly, on his horned helmet. It was a remarkably efficient way to silence a victory speech. Hammer stumbled, dazed. He straightened his helmet and complained, "General? I didn't say anything." Amon glared. "That's a reward. You did well driving that wolf cub away today." Hammer grinned, licking his lips. "Ha ha, General. It's a pity that Wolf Cub got away, or we could have had wolf meat for dinner. Ignoring him, Iman pulled Byrne aside to a secluded spot. Iman lowered his voice, his smile vanishing. The task I gave you, is it ready? Byrne trembled, his voice pleading. General, must we really do this? It will anger the gods. They will punish us. To hell with the gods. Iman growled, his eyes flashing with madness. I only believe in the god of forging. Stop the nonsense and get it done. And send men to collect every stone and piece of wood in the city. Tear down houses if you have to. Move everything that can help defend the city to the walls. Now, Byrne saw the madness in General Iman's eyes, and, realizing he couldn't change the general's mind, lowered his head to hide his complex expression. Yes, General Iman. Meanwhile, inside my tent at the Western Allied Forces camp, the medic had just finished cleaning the deep bowstring laceration on my right hand. He carefully applied the golden spike ointment gifted by Marquis Milan Winterborn, which provided a cooling relief, then repeated the process on Wolfgang's leg wound. Viscount, this should suffice, the medic said respectfully. I've heard of the Winterborn family's golden spike ointment. It works wonders. I trust you, and this warrior will recover soon. I nodded my thanks. After the medic bowed and left, the tent flap opened again. Captain Buck entered, glanced at my bandaged hand and the resting Wolfgang, and reported softly. My lord, the Wanlu captive named John insists on seeing you. He says he may be able to help us. Oh, help us. I rose from my makeshift bed, my injured hand slowing my movements. Let's go see. Buck led me through the dimly lit, bustling camp. It's always comforting to know that even in a war zone, the smell of unwashed soldiers remains remarkably consistent. They arrived at the prisoner enclosure, guarded strictly by soldiers. The captive stirred as I and Buck approached. Priest John scrambled to his feet and hurried to the fence. He knelt, his forehead touching the cold ground. Respected lord, please give me another chance. I can help you, his voice trembling in the night. I noted the man's desperate humility, thinking the old man at least understood his situation, though his sudden pivot to sycophancy was a bit jarring. Ignoring the plea for a moment, I scanned the guards before saying, "Follow me." I had the officer open the gate and led John to a nearby administrative tent. Buck stood guard outside like a stone tower. I sat at the table, resting my injured hand on the surface, and stared at John. You say you can help? How? I asked, my tone flat. Yes, my lord. John replied urgently. Paul Botticelli is a cautious man. After taking Storm City, he ordered us scholars to inspect all defense blueprints to eliminate potential risks. He paused. We discovered a forgotten gap. A gap. I leaned forward. Yes, it dates back to the city's construction, part of an underground drainage system. Most old pipes were abandoned or updated. We checked the marked exits. 3 had collapsed, but 1 remained relatively intact. It could still accommodate a single person. I was the one responsible for marking and sealing it. I only used loose dirt and rubble, not stone or metal. I narrowed my eyes. Can it be reopened? Yes, my lord. John nodded. It wasn't sealed securely, just enough to keep out beasts. If we find the location from the outside, we can easily dig through. Hope flickered in his eyes. If you send a small elite force through, even a few dozen men, you could strike from within while the defenders are distracted by the main assault. Storm City will fall. I nodded. If true, the value was immense. Where is the exit? Just outside the northeast wall, behind a shrub-covered hill. I can lead your men there now. I stood up, looking down at John. You've done well. Now, state your price. John bowed low. I only ask that you keep your word and spare my people. Very well, I said with cold authority. You and the Wanlu who cooperate will assist us in reclaiming Storm City. Afterward, you will all follow me back to the Obsidian territory. You will earn your redemption through labor and loyalty. John sighed, realizing this was the best outcome he could hope for. He bowed again. I stepped outside and ordered Buck. Buck, take a few men and this John under cover of darkness to verify the location. Buck looked confused but didn't question me. Where to, my lord? He will tell you, I said. Report back immediately regardless of the result. Don't alert the enemy. I have more important matters to discuss with Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern. I hurried away into the shadows, mostly to avoid the inevitable awkwardness of watching them bond. Buck looked at the nervous John and suppressed his questions. Can you walk? Keep up. The Lord has orders. Yes, my lord. I will lead the way. I passed through the camp, soldiers saluting me with respect. Viscount, thank you. Your men saved my life today, a wounded soldier cried out. I nodded warmly, but kept moving. I soon reached the heavily guarded tent of Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern. A golden lion knight stood guard. The knight stepped forward, looking apologetic. Viscount, I'm sorry. Marquis Marcus is in a meeting and ordered no interruptions. I have urgent military intelligence. The knight remained firm. I apologize, my lord, but the Marquis's orders are absolute. I sighed, not wanting to make trouble, and prepared to wait. Apparently, absolute orders are only absolute until someone actually important shows up. Just then, the Marquis's steady voice rang out from inside. Is that Eli? Come in. The knight relaxed and stepped aside. Please, my lord. I straightened my armor, took a breath, and entered. The tent was brightly lit and the atmosphere heavy. Besides Marquis Marcus Hohenzollern, Marquis Milan Winterborn, Marquis Karl Cora, and Marquis Fryclair were present. A stranger was also there. All 5 pairs of eyes locked onto me as I entered. I composed myself, saluted the 5 commanders, and spoke clearly. My lords, apologies for the intrusion. I have urgent news for Marquis Marcus and all of you. My lords, apologies for the intrusion. I have urgent news for Marquis Marcus and all of you. Marquis Marcus nodded and gestured toward a sharp-looking man beside him. Roland, this is the Viscount I mentioned. The man named Roland studied me with interest, then offered a hearty smile. A fine young man. I am Roland Laroche. He added with a playful tone, we shall be family soon enough, after all. Laroche? I looked at him with newfound surprise. Apparently, my family tree was growing branches I hadn't been briefed on. While I bore little resemblance to Sir Lucius, my confidence and aura clearly marked my status. Marquis Milan Winterborn added with a smile. Ah, you didn't know? Lord Roland is one of the only 2 titled knights in our western border. You should ask him for training advice later. A titled knight from the Laroche family. I was stunned. Titled knights, standing above gold rank, were the kingdom's ultimate strategic assets. Roland waved the praise aside with a casual air. Old Marquis, you flatter me. Feel free to ask me anything regarding your training. I thanked him respectfully. Marquis Marcus steered the conversation back. What is this urgent news? I replied. I captured John, a priest formerly under Paul Botticelli in Storm City. He revealed the existence of an ancient drainage tunnel leading into the city. I have sent Captain Buck to verify the location. The intelligence is highly credible. The commanders were visibly shocked and intrigued. A secret tunnel into the city held immense strategic value. Marquis Marcus paced, deep in thought. If we send an elite force to infiltrate during our main assault, we could cause chaos from within. Or even open the gates, drastically reducing our casualties. He looked at me with praise. This intelligence is worth its weight in gold. His gaze then shifted to Roland, burning with intent. A titled knight. With such a powerhouse inside, the Federation defenders would be no match. Roland smiled, understanding the look. Lord Marcus, just give the order. Sir Lucius instructed me to follow your command in this campaign. Marcus nodded firmly. Excellent. We shall put a titled knight to good use. He turned to me. Since your men found the tunnel, you shall lead the operation. Once confirmed, you and Roland will proceed. Roland, your priority is my safety. It is night, the perfect time to strike. Go to Baron Ron and take his elite Golden Lion Knights. Decide the infiltration size yourself. Stay hidden until we signal the main assault. Then, create chaos and, if possible, open the gates. I nodded solemnly. With a titled knight and the Golden Lion Knights, the mission's success and safety were greatly bolstered. I suppose I'm just the lucky guy who gets to hold the door open for them. Understood, Lord Marcus. Marquis Milan looked at my bandaged hand with concern. Lord Marcus, I am injured from today's battle. Should we send someone else? Marcus realized his oversight and looked regretful. My apologies. I was so excited I forgot your injury. I felt a warmth in my chest and flexed my fingers, resolute. Thank you for your concern, but I do not wish to miss such a critical mission. With Lord Roland and Baron Ron, my role is coordination. My injury will not hinder me. Mylan sighed, knowing he couldn't dissuade me. Roland laughed, clearly impressed by my courage. Don't worry. I'll protect him with my life, or Sir Lucius will have my head. Seeing my resolve and Roland's guarantee, Marcus decided. Very well. Go prepare immediately. Take the guard outside to find Ron and depart. We launch the full assault the day after tomorrow. Stay hidden until the signal. Yes. I and Roland departed the tent. The guard led them toward Baron Ron's camp. On the way, they exchanged words. Roland had been training in the harsh Yabufindo snow mountain in the north. Through sheer perseverance, he broke through to become a titled knight. He had just returned to the west when Sir Lucius sent him to the front. He was there to deliver supplies and bolster the coalition army's strength. They reached Ron's tent. Ron was sharpening his mithril spear under an oil lamp. Ron looked up, surprised. Why are you here? He saw Roland behind me, and his eyes widened in disbelief. Teacher, when did you return? Roland laughed and clapped Ron on the shoulder. Roland had once served as Ron's mentor under Marquis Marcus's request. I realized their connection. Ron, time is short. Marquis Marcus has ordered you to assemble your elite Golden Lion Knights for a secret mission. Meet me at my tent once you are ready for the details. Realizing the gravity of the order, Ron stood up immediately. Understood. I will assemble them at once. Ron left, and I and Roland went to my tent, where Buck was waiting. Buck reported with suppressed excitement. My lord, we found it. There is indeed a drainage entrance hidden by brush behind the northeast hill. The entrance was narrow and filled with debris, but the tunnel remained intact and seemed to lead into the city. I exhaled in relief and nodded. Good. We'll discuss the details on the way. Buck, gather all Black Raven Knights and 150 elite Obsidian Territory soldiers. Bring 2 days of rations and gear. Be ready to move immediately. Yes, my lord. Buck vanished into the night. Soon, Ron arrived with 50 Golden Lion Knights. Buck had assembled the force. 50 Black Raven Knights and 150 elite soldiers stood in the dark like a pack of wolves, though hopefully with better hygiene. Without a word, the group followed John's lead, slipping out of the coalition army camp under the moonlight toward the northeast corner of Storm City. They navigated through tall grass and mounds, eventually reaching a slope hidden by dense bushes. Pushing aside thorns, they revealed a dark hole barely wide enough for 2 people. This is it, my lord, John whispered. I checked for signs of recent activity, found none, and gave the order. Black Raven Knights first. Use your daggers to clear the blockage quietly. Pass the debris back. Stay quiet and move fast. The order was relayed. 2 scouts entered the darkness, followed by the rest. Inside, the sound of digging was constant as mud, stones, and roots were passed back and piled up. The process was orderly, marked only by heavy breathing and the rustle of earth. Time passed as the moon shifted. Eventually, a muffled exclamation came from deep within. A mud-covered soldier emerged, eyes bright with excitement, and whispered to me, My lord, it's open. I see light and feel a breeze. The tunnel is clear. I felt a surge of joy. I signaled for the soldiers to pull back. Stay quiet inside. I ordered, then turned to Roland, Ron, and Buck. We'll take the lead. The tunnel was open, but the other side's safety was uncertain. Having the titled knight, Roland, at the front was the best insurance against danger, or at least a very sturdy human shield. The night was deep, with only a faint hint of dawn in the distance. Time was short. I and Roland crouched at the front. The exit was covered by a thin layer of soil and grass. I nodded to Roland and carefully brushed away the soft earth. A narrow gap appeared. I held my breath and peered out at a wasteland of weeds, broken stone, and rotting wood. In the distance stood low houses, and behind them, the towering black walls of Storm City cast heavy shadows. It was deathly silent. No patrol torches were visible. We're lucky. This is an abandoned area, I whispered. I began widening the hole, but suddenly, voices nearby made me freeze. I signaled for silence. I'm exhausted. I don't know what Byrne is thinking, making us do this manual labor so late. Just keep quiet. Let's finish and get back before Byrne catches us slacking. The second voice sounded weary. Footsteps approached the hole. I watched through the gap as 2 Federation soldiers in leather armor yawned and loosened their belts. They were looking for a place to relieve themselves, right toward the hole. I looked at Roland, who shifted into a lethal, predatory stance. In a blur of motion, Roland vanished from the tunnel. The soldiers remained oblivious to their impending doom. As they stood still, two iron-like hands shot out from below. The soldiers' mouths were clamped shut. They gasped, eyes wide with terror, unable to scream. Roland's grip was absolute, threatening to crush their jaws. With a surge of strength, he slammed their heads into the ground. Thud, thud. The sounds were sickeningly dull in the quiet night. The soldiers twitched once and went limp. Silence returned. I watched from the hole, stunned. It happened so fast I barely saw Roland move. Is this the power of a titled knight? I shook off the shock and crawled out. It's certainly more effective than my usual approach of asking people nicely to stop. Buck and Ron followed, scanning the perimeter. The rest of the force emerged like a silent stream and gathered in the clearing. Over 200 men stood there, making no sound beyond their own breathing. I ordered the bodies hidden near the hole with soil and weeds. I looked toward the flickering lights of the houses mentioned by the soldiers. We must avoid that area, I whispered. I beckoned to a nervous John. Find a place to hide everyone. Dawn was approaching. Time was running out. John licked his dry lips. My lord, I heard what they said. Barren is General Amon's trusted strategist. He is the mastermind behind many decisions. If we could capture him. Buck frowned. My lord, that's too risky. We are deep in enemy territory. Our priority is to stay hidden. Acting rashly will expose us. We should find a hiding spot immediately. I remained silent, fingers tracing my sword hilt. Buck was right, but John's suggestion was tempting. A strategist who knew the city's secrets was invaluable. This might be an opportunity, I decided. John, where are we? Is there a place to hide nearby? We are near the old district. There is an abandoned church nearby. A church? Yes. The Federation and the West worship different gods. When the city fell, the Western church was looted and abandoned. It's that way not far. I made my choice. Buck, Roland, we'll go to the houses and see if we can grab Barren. Ron, take the troops to the church with John. Stay on high alert. Do not move without my orders. Buck looked frustrated but yielded to my resolve. Yes, my lord. Roland remained calm, while Ron nodded, though clearly worried. Understood, Eli. Be careful. The main force melted into the night toward the church. I, Roland, and Buck crept toward the flickering lights. As they neared, the soldiers' crude chatter and the sound of heavy lifting grew clear. They hid behind a crumbling wall, and I cautiously peered out. Because nothing says tactical genius like spying on people from behind a pile of wet bricks. 8 soldiers were listlessly dismantling a ruined building, piling bricks and wood in a disorganized heap. Standing among them was a man who looked entirely out of place. He wore a neat, dark robe and had a gaunt, pale face, occasionally urging the soldiers to work faster. His distinct demeanor marked him as the target, the strategist, Barren. 8 scattered soldiers, 1 primary target. It was almost enough to make me feel bad for them, if they weren't currently standing in the way of my afternoon. I whispered to Viscount Roland, "Can we eliminate these men silently?" Roland narrowed his eyes. "The 6 below are no problem, but the 2 on the roof are further away. You must ensure they cannot raise an alarm." Buck stepped in. "I'll handle the roof." "My lord, you take Barren." I nodded, gripping my sword hilt. Roland closed his eyes, then snapped them open, a faint green light flickering in his gaze. He produced 2 exquisite daggers, holding them in a reverse grip. With a nod, the 3 shadows surged forward like hunting leopards. Roland moved with supernatural speed, a wind of death sweeping across the sight. His daggers traced elegant, lethal arcs, slicing through the throats of the working soldiers. Before blood could even spray or expressions of horror could fully form, the soldiers collapsed, their lives extinguished. The last soldier, having heard the thuds, turned just in time to see his comrades fall. Terror seized him, and he opened his mouth to scream, "Een!" Before the sound escaped, a blue-tinged dagger flew through the air, piercing his open mouth. The blade carried blood and bone fragments, silencing his call forever. The dagger continued its flight, embedding itself firmly into a broken wall. Meanwhile, as the 2 sentries on the roof peered down in suspicion, Buck's powerful arms clamped around their necks like iron hoops. With a sharp snap, their eyes bulged, and they went limp. Buck lowered the body silently. I had already locked onto Burn. I lunged, covering Burn's mouth with my uninjured hand and tackling him to the ground. I pinned him with my knee, exerting my full weight to secure the strategist. Burn was stunned, his mind blank from the sudden assault. He could only feel the crushing force on his mouth and the suffocating weight pressing him down. He struggled in vain, emitting muffled, desperate pleas. Roland, ignoring the fallen soldiers, gestured toward the dagger in the wall. The blade flew back as if pulled by an invisible thread, landing perfectly in his palm. He nodded at me, his movements effortless. I was once again stunned by Roland's supernatural skill. It's honestly getting a bit show-offy at this point. Shaking it off, I whispered to the others, "Dispose of the bodies. We're leaving." I hauled the limp Burn to his feet, keeping my hand clamped over the man's mouth, and dragged him into the darkness. Roland and Buck followed after clearing the scene. The trio vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only silence and the faint scent of blood. Under the cover of night, the group hurried to the abandoned church indicated by Priest John. The church was dilapidated, its spire collapsed, and its heavy wooden doors missing, leaving a gaping entrance. They slipped inside to find the interior in ruins. Pews were shattered, and the walls were stripped of their icons. In the center, the statue of the goddess of light lay toppled and broken. Ron and his golden lion knights emerged from the shadows. Seeing me, Ron relaxed and hurried over. "Eli, you're back. Did it go well?" he asked, eyeing the captive Burn. "Well enough. We caught a big fish," I replied. "Find a quiet spot. We need to interrogate him immediately." Ron signaled the guards to stay alert and led them toward the back of the church. The rear led to a row of low, stone-walled rooms, formerly clergy quarters, now mostly doorless and ruined. Some soldiers were already resting in the more intact rooms. Others gathered in the courtyard, silently eating rations to regain their strength. 2 Obsidian Territory soldiers stood guard at the rear gate. Ron led me into a room containing only a rotting table and a few crooked stools. Priest John stood up anxiously as they entered. I threw Burn onto the cold floor. Burn scrambled up and immediately knelt, pressing his forehead to the ground. "My lords, spare me. I don't know why you've come, but I won't ask. I'll answer anything, do anything. Just let me live." Priest John sneered at the sight of the once arrogant strategist. "Master Burn, it's been a long time." Recognizing the voice, Burn looked up and identified John in the moonlight. "You, the priest from Paul's side?" "No, I had nothing to do with Paul Botticelli's death. It was Hammer. That barbarian did it. Please, I can lead you to Hammer's camp. He's the true culprit. I know where he is." He clearly mistook them for Wanlu remnants seeking vengeance for Paul Botticelli. "What did General Amon order you to do? What are your plans and defenses in Storm City? Answer truthfully." My cold voice shattered his delusion. It's amazing how quickly a man's confidence evaporates when he realizes he's talking to the wrong set of executioners. The accent, Westerners. Burn turned deathly pale, trembling like a leaf. Falling into the hands of Wanlu remnants might have offered a chance for negotiation, but falling into the hands of Westerners, who held a blood feud with the Federation, he saw his own gruesome end. Overcome with terror, he stammered, "My lord, I know so little. General Amon discussed everything with Hammer. I'm just a minor pawn." Clang. I drew my silver sword, resting the blade against Burn's neck. The icy chill bit into his skin. Burn froze, his trembling stopping instantly. He could feel the razor-sharp edge. A slight movement would sever his head. I'll talk. Spare me. I'll tell you everything." Driven by the instinct for survival, Burn wept, abandoning all loyalty and pretense. It was all General Amon's orders. I had no choice. "Please." I frowned at the pathetic display, assuming it was merely the cowardice of a man facing death. It's amazing how quickly a man's principles evaporate when he's staring at a sharp piece of metal. "What did Amon order you to do? Why the supplies and the late-night labor?" Burn sobbed, no longer daring to hide the truth. "General Amon ordered me to collect every defensive resource in the city, regardless of the cost. Bricks, wood, anything throwable. I had to tear down houses at night. He also made me secretly plant oil and dry timber near the granaries, armories, main intersections, and the Lord's mansion. He intends to, oh gods, His voice trailed off, and he collapsed to his knees. The group frowned, sensing something sinister. I voiced the terrifying realization. Collecting supplies was one thing, but planting incendiaries was another. He intends to burn Storm City to the ground if it falls. Burn's desperate wailing confirmed it. Buck and Ron gasped in shock. They expected a desperate defense, not such madness. He meant to bury this ancient fortress and its people with me. Roland reacted most violently. His playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a dangerous aura. His eyes narrowed with murderous rage. "How dare you," he roared. He lunged forward, hoisting Burn into the air by his collar. The titled knight's strength left Burn gasping for air, his face turning purple. Storm City was the heart of the LaRoche family, a symbol of their 1,000-year legacy. "Mercy, I'm just following orders," Burn shrieked, terrified by Roland's killing intent. I, though shaken, remained calm. They were lucky to know the plan, though I'm sure they'd prefer knowing how to survive it. "Roland, stay your hand. We need him alive. He knows where the fuel is hidden. We need him to help us neutralize these traps once we breach the city." Burn nodded frantically, clinging to this lifeline. "I know every location. I can lead you. Please, don't kill me." Roland stared at him, chest heaving as he suppressed his fury. With a cold snort, he threw Burn to the floor like trash. Cough, cough. Burn lay on the ground, gasping, paralyzed by fear and relief. Silence filled the room. The atmosphere was heavy with the weight of Amon's scorched earth plan. I, Roland, Buck, and Ron conferred. We must stop him, but we lack the manpower to clear all points without being detected. Roland suggested killing Amon, but Buck disagreed. Too risky. We don't know the defenses of the Lord's mansion. A direct assault would likely end in our destruction. Ron agreed. Teacher, Buck is right. Our priority is to assist the main force in opening the gates while minimizing the fire threat. I proposed. Tonight, we take a small elite team led by Burn. We destroy the outer, easier targets and retreat immediately. Tomorrow, when Marquis Marcus signals the attack, we seize the gates from within. The plan was approved. As dawn broke, I ordered the soldiers to take shifts guarding the church. The others rested among the ruins to recover their strength. Exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone after the tense night. Soon, the church was filled with the sound of snoring. Meanwhile, in the Lord's mansion, the villains were busy being villains. Amon sat on his throne, frowning at a soldier's report. "Missing?" Amon asked, displeased. The soldier reported that Burn had vanished after supervising supply collection. Hammer chimed in, suggesting Burn might just be hiding to slack off. "He's done it before," Hammer muttered. Amon considered the pressure on Burn and accepted the excuse. He turned his irritation toward Hammer. "Since you're defending him, you can take over his duties. Get those materials to the walls. Get to work." Hammer's face fell as he realized he'd inherited a nightmare task. He scratched his helmet and retreated, dejected. Amon ordered the soldier to keep searching and bring Burn to him immediately. Time passed until night fell again, bathing the city in moonlight. My team, fully rested, prepared to move. Burn was brought forward, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror. "Lead us to the outer fire points," I commanded. "Your life depends on it." The group slipped into the night like ghosts, heading toward an abandoned warehouse. For guards stood outside, completely distracted by a card game. It's comforting to know the fate of the city rests in the hands of people who can't even manage a fair game of Go Fish. "I win. Pay up," one shouted. "Are you cheating?" Another grumbled. "If you can't play, don't play," the first retorted. I signaled Roland. The titled knight vanished, moving like a phantom. A cold wind brushed the guards' necks. Before they could scream, their throats were slit. They collapsed, cards scattering as they died. My team rushed into the warehouse. It was mostly empty, save for straw and crates. Burn gestured toward a pile of straw in the corner. A black raven knight cleared the straw, revealing a hidden cache. I found 2 sealed canisters of oil. I ordered them moved outside and buried in deep pits. Soldiers quickly transported and destroyed the oil, neutralizing the fire hazard. They hid the 4 corpses in the warehouse with straw. The successful first strike boosted my confidence, though I suppose killing people in their sleep is a low bar for success. Under Burn's guidance, the group silently cleared 2 more fire-starting points on the city outskirts. These sites, located in abandoned buildings, held varying amounts of oil, all restricted to the city's periphery. I dared not approach the core, fearing tighter security would compromise tomorrow's mission. As the last site was buried, the eastern sky began to pale with the coming dawn. Time to return, I ordered, noting the rising risk of exposure. The group retreated through the shadows, returning to the abandoned church. Inside, the soldiers were awake, silently checking gear for the impending battle. I had burned guarded and rested on a stone slab, hoping our sabotage would disrupt Amon's plans. Success now hinged on opening the city gates and the main force's assault intensity. They could only wait for the signal from outside the walls. At dawn, before the morning sun could warm the night's chill, a sharp horn blast shattered the silence. The sound echoed like thunder across Storm City. Then came the roar of the Western Allied forces launching their long-awaited full-scale assault. The sudden attack jolted the city awake. On the high walls, after a brief silence, Federation officers began screaming orders. Enemy attack. The Westerners are here. Inform General Amon. Archers, take positions. We'll crush them like last time. Amidst the chaotic, desperate fervor, I and my men woke instantly, our training taking over. It's the signal, Ron exclaimed. I nodded, shaking off my fatigue. Gather everyone. It's our turn. 200 soldiers assembled, their eyes burning with resolve. Warriors, we hid in the dark for this moment. I declared, today, we open the gates, welcome our brothers, and stop the plot to burn this city. We are the heroes who will save Storm City. For Pendragon. For the West. Charge. The soldiers' morale peaked, their roars shaking the ruins. I glanced at the bound Burn in the side room, frowning. Killing him would lose the intelligence on remaining fire points, which is a real shame, considering how much I'd enjoy the alternative. John, stay with 2 men. Guard him. Don't let him escape or die until we control the situation. Yes, sir, Priest John replied. I drew my sword and pointed toward the exit. Target, the city gate. Charge. The 200 men surged out of the ruins, sprinting toward the gate. Inside Storm City, the streets were eerily empty. Civilians were hidden. All Federation troops were manning the walls. Only scattered patrols remained. Hey, which unit are you? The walls need support. A frantic Federation officer confronted my group. He demanded to know who their commander was. Before he could finish, my silver sword flashed, slicing the officer's throat. The officer's expression froze in confusion. He collapsed, clutching his bleeding neck. Full speed. Clear all obstacles. I ignored the corpse, leading my men in a fierce charge toward the gate. Meanwhile, the main battle raged as the Western Allied forces launched a desperate, all-out assault. A dense rain of arrows pinned the defenders down. Amon, shielded by hammer, watched the walls tremble, his face grim. He realized the Westerners were determined to take the city at any cost. Warriors of Hofgard. Amon roared to be heard over the din. This is the final test from the god of forging. Fight for the glory of Hofgard. A massive battering ram slammed into the iron-reinforced gate. Boom, boom. The gatehouse shook with every impact. The defenders roared back, their ferocity ignited by the desperate situation. Yet, the reality was grim. Scaling ladders lined the walls, with Western soldiers climbing like ants. I've always hated ants, and these were significantly more stabby. Defenders pushed logs and stones, engaging in a brutal struggle for every inch of the wall. A Western soldier reached the top, only to be impaled by a Hofgard soldier's spear. In his final moments, the Westerner grabbed the spear, pulling hard. The Hofgard soldier was dragged toward the edge, terrified. Another Western soldier seized the opening, piercing him through. Amidst the carnage, Amon struggled to plug the gaps in the defense. Damn it, Hammer. Where are the supplies? Where are the stones? An officer grabbed his arm, pointing inward. General Amon, look behind us. That unit, their armor is unfamiliar. Amon turned, shocked. 200 men were cutting through the city, tearing through the scattered defenders like paper. At the front, the white-haired youth who had caused him so much trouble led the charge. Enemies in the rear. Amon screamed, Hammer, take men and stop them. Don't let them reach the gate. But it was too late. I had already reached the gatehouse. Only a few dozen guards remained, struggling to reinforce the gate against the battering ram. Most troops were occupied on the walls. "Brothers, now, open the gate," I shouted. My men roared in response. Roland, no longer holding back, stepped forward. A terrifying cyan aura erupted around him, the true power of a titled knight. He shot forward like an arrow toward the panicked guards. Enemies behind. Defend. A guard leader's cry was cut short as Roland's blade severed his head. Roland moved like a ghost, his dagger reaping lives with precise, lethal efficiency. I moved with fluid grace, cutting through the defenders who stood no chance of mounting an effective resistance. I and my main force followed, swiftly slaughtering the remaining defenders. "Clear the obstacles. Open the winch," I commanded. Soldiers immediately scrambled to clear the debris piled behind the gate. As internal resistance vanished, the impact from outside intensified. Boom! A deafening, thunderous crash echoed through the area. The heavy gate groaned, its bolts cracking. Hammer arrived with a squad of elite Hovgard soldiers, rushing down the stairs. I suppose he finally realized the party had already started without him. They were immediately intercepted by Buck, Ron, and the elite Black Crow and Golden Lion Knights. "Get lost, Western scum!" Hammer roared, charging with his giant hammer. Buck met him head-on, his gold-rank battle chi erupting to block the brute force. Like a viper, Ron struck at Hammer's vitals with his mithril spear. The two gold-rank warriors and their elite troops held the narrow corridor firmly. Despite his numbers, Hammer could not break the line and suffered mounting casualties. Hammer barely dodged a dagger thrown by Roland, which embedded itself deep into the stone wall. Distracted, Hammer was struck in the waist by Ron's powerful spear sweep. Arg! Hammer staggered back, slamming into the wall as if hit by a siege engine. "General Amon, save me!" Hammer cried out in despair. Amon, watching from the stairs, saw the gate failing and the walls crumbling. Realizing the battle was lost, a look of cold, frantic resolve replaced his shock. He glanced at me, then at the struggling Hammer, and made his choice. Ignoring Hammer's pleas, he turned away from the battle. He sprinted toward the Lord's mansion. I, having tracked Amon's movements, saw him fleeing, and my eyes flashed with cold intent. I couldn't let the culprit escape. "You handle this," I shouted to Buck and Ron. I chased after Amon without hesitation. I was determined not to let Amon get away. Locking onto the fleeing figure, I sprinted, vaulting over collapsed walls and window ledges. I leaped onto a rooftop, spotting Amon clearly in the street below. It's amazing how fast a man can run when he's abandoning his entire army. I jumped down, plunging my silver sword toward Amon's back. Sensing the lethal threat, Amon rolled forward just in time. The blade grazed his shoulder, carving a deep groove into his armor. Amon scrambled up and drew his heavy, broadsword. As he turned, I landed and swung my blade with a shrill whistle. Clang! The swords collided with a piercing metallic screech. Using his superior size and strength, Amon roared and forced me to slide back. "White-haired brat." Amon glared at me with murderous intent. "You're bold to come alone. I hope your skill matches your courage." I replied coldly. "I hope your skill matches your arrogance." "Die." Enraged, Amon charged, his heavy sword descending with mountain-crushing force. I, lacking the strength to block, dodged with agility. It's amazing how much faster you move when you're trying not to be flattened. The heavy sword shattered the stone floor. I countered, thrusting my blade toward Amon's exposed ribs. Amon parried just in time. Clang! During the deadlock, I delivered a precise kick to Amon's side. Thud! Amon stumbled back, gasping from the sharp pain. I stood ready, mocking. "It seems your arrogance is indeed greater." Amon wiped blood from his lip, his mind reeling. He had felt the intensity of my battle chi, high silver rank. He sneered. "So, you captured that coward Burn. I'm curious, how did you infiltrate Storm City?" "Magic? None of your business," I replied. "Then take your secrets to hell." Amon snarled. He charged again, his attacks now wild and vicious. Abandoning defense, Amon aimed for lethal strikes, putting immense pressure on me. I was forced to rely on superior footwork and technique to survive the onslaught. I spotted a momentary opening in Amon's defense. I slipped in, my blade slicing a wound into Amon's abdomen. Amon panted, sweat and blood dripping from his forehead. He cursed his own neglect of training, having grown soft on power and luxury. Spitting blood, he laughed maniacally. Burn must have told you everything. I've made arrangements. Even if I die, Storm City will burn with me.